Chapter 1508. On the coast. The depth of the sea here had reached 1,000 meters. If a person was dragged into the water, it wouldn't take long for them to drown. Before they could drown, they would be instantly killed and devoured by countless abyssal creatures. At this moment, a main battleship was on the sea, isolated and without help. There were some wreckage of small boats around it. It was originally just a normal training at sea, but a large number of abyssal creatures suddenly besieged them. The commander on the main battleship was the 25-year-old Zhang Ying. Zhang Ying was dressed in a blue military uniform. At this moment he was in the war room on the deck. They had withstood the first round of attacks, but the other party was obviously just probing attacks. They didn't go all out. Now Zhang Ying was extremely anxious. This was because this round of probing attacks had already consumed 1/10 of the ammunition on the battleship. If this continued, the remaining ammunition wouldn't last until tomorrow morning. Only after nightfall was the real danger. The distress signal had been sent out. There had been a violent explosion 20 nautical miles away, indicating that the reinforcements had been wiped out. It seems like it'll be a hand-to-hand battle after night. Zhang Ying tightened his grip on the sword in his hand. The eyes under the helmet suddenly became sharp. Suddenly, a violent sound came from the sea. It seemed like a layer of red waves with flames was rapidly spreading and surging over. General, look! The tremors caused Zhang Ying to look over. Under the torrential waves, 3 ships were tearing through the surface of the sea. Countless abyssal demons leaping into the air were easily slaughtered. After all, these abyssal demons were only low-level existences. If there were really powerful abyssal demons, then they would be killed easily. If there were powerful abyssal creatures, they wouldn't have to be so careful. They could just rush over to Binhai City. Quick, get close to them, Zhang Ying ordered. And the main battleship immediately approached the 3 fast ships. On the 3 ships, there were also brave and fierce generals. Haha, I can kill a large number of these bastards with a single swing of my axe. Little girl, you have to sit tight. Don't get thrown off this ship. I don't have time to save you. A burly man wielded an axe in his hand and killed the abyssal tribe in front of him in the water. Then he stood guard at the stern of the ship. Xia Shui was also on this fast boat. The words just now were also directed at Xia Shui, but Xia Shui didn't say anything. At this moment, they were less than 5 miles away from the main warship. Below these ships, there were also incomparably sharp rotating spikes. Moreover, they were all rotating at high speed. Anything that got close to them would be torn into pieces. Therefore, if you want to attack a warship, you can only attack from the surface. It was so much so that there were specialized weapon cabins at the bottom of the ship. The power that they could unleash was even greater. Boom! Suddenly, dozens of abyssal creatures rushed out of the water. The warrior with the axe was immediately entangled by the abyssal tribe. Fuck! He was about to be dragged into the water in the next moment. Xia Shui finally made a move. The sword in his hand. Whoosh! It was unsheathed, shining with a cold light. By the time the cold light disappeared, more than 10 abyssal tribe members had already turned into corpses and fell back into the water. Xia Shui retracted her sword and stood there. It was as if nothing had happened. The burly man was also shocked. He had never seen a woman with such terrifying strength. Oh my god, you're really good at hiding your strength. When he saw Xia Shui's skill, he was naturally stunned. But then he continued to fight. Originally, the burly man didn't approve of Xia Shui boarding the ship. Although the latter was a disciple of Tianzong Academy, he could tell at a glance that she was a rookie with no combat experience. The real battlefield was ever-changing. It wasn't something that one could handle with just a little strength. But obviously, the burly man underestimated the latter's strength. If Xia Shui didn't make a move, he would be dead by now. The 3 fast boats also quickly cooperated with each other. The main warship was also approaching them. The sea was turbulent. It seemed that the attack of the abyssal tribe wasn't that strong. Therefore, the rescue fleet could be considered to have met up with the main warship. Board the ship. The group of people threw hooks and locks. There were a total of hundreds of experts boarding the 3 ships at the same time. Xia Shui was also among the crowd. The group of people successfully boarded the main warship, but the abyssal tribe seemed to have retreated at this moment. They didn't attack anymore. Meng Lang, Yang Fan. Zhang Ying quickly came to meet these people. The chief captain of this rescue team was Yang Fan. And this person called Meng Lang was the one who was on the same ship as Xia Shui. Greetings, General, Yang Fan said. Are there only a few of you? Zhang Ying glanced around. Although the people who came were all experts in the army, there were only 100 of them. It was impossible for them to withstand such a fierce attack. We relied on the cover of the main warship to break through the blockade. The camp was also surrounded by the abyssal tribe. We could only break through. Here are the supplies. Yang Fan took out a storage box in his hand. The storage space of this storage box was much larger than that of an ordinary storage ring. Furthermore, it was more stable and safe. If some people's storage rings were accidentally struck by yuan power during a battle, the cheaper storage rings would immediately be scrapped. At that time, the items inside would not be able to be taken out. What? A solemn glint flashed across Zhang Ying's eyes. At the same time, he glanced at the storage box in his hand. There were a lot of things stored in the box. At the very least, it was quite abundant in terms of strategic supplies. At least it could last for 3 days. Zhang Ying. Xia Shui came out. When Zhang Ying heard someone calling him, he was stunned for a moment. Then he quickly reacted. This voice sounded very familiar. He hurriedly looked over as well. Xia Shui. Zhang Ying's eyes suddenly revealed a look of excitement. He did not expect to meet Xia Shui in such a place. The two of them were very good sisters. Later, after Zhang Ying joined the army, they rarely saw each other. All of you go and have a rest. Zhang Ying couldn't easily lose his composure, so he dismissed his men first. Why are you here? Zhang Ying was also very surprised to see Xia Shui in front of him. He quickly said, Come in with me. I heard that you are now the chief disciple of Tianzong Academy. I didn't expect you to be so successful. Zhang Ying was a few years older than Xia Shui. Xia Shui also lowered her head and chuckled. I was also lucky, so I was qualified to enter Tianzong Academy. Well, you are successful. But why are you here? Don't you know how dangerous this place is? Zhang Ying's face suddenly became serious. After all, this situation was not a joke. To come to such a dangerous place, although it was a very happy thing to meet with a thick-skinned person, he couldn't risk his life like this. Sister Zhang Ying, you saved my life back then. Now that you are in trouble, how can I sit back and do nothing? Xia Shui's eyes were incomparably firm. When Zhang Ying saw Xia Shui's eyes, he knew that there was no way to persuade her. After all, Zhang Ying knew Xia Shui's character very well. As long as this girl decided on something, basically no one could change her mind. Sigh. Although the situation is very dangerous now, you can rest assured that I will send you back, Zhang Ying said. Xia Shui was his sister. Naturally, he couldn't let Xia Shui be in danger. I am now a lot stronger. Xia Shui also had her own pride. After all, with her current strength, she wasn't so weak that she couldn't withstand a single blow. I know you are strong. As soon as Zhang Ying finished speaking, the warship suddenly shook violently, as if a terrifying force was approaching. Immediately, Zhang Ying's eyes suddenly changed. Not good, it's the commander of the Abyss race. During this period of time, Zhang Ying had also collected some information about the Abyss race. The current Abyss race was in fact unified under the command of the Abyss race's commander. As long as the commander of the Abyss race was killed, there would be no problem. The remaining Abyss race were not to be feared. Now there were a total of 5,000 armored soldiers on the warship. If each of them killed 5 or 6, they could kill tens of thousands of Abyss race. When the two of them rushed out of the cabin, they realized that the powerful fluctuation wasn't coming for their warship. Instead, it was in the direction of the shore. Zhou Zheng was already very close to the main warship, but at this moment, he was suddenly locked by a terrifying aura. Immediately, Zhou Zheng knew that this was troublesome. He didn't expect to be targeted by the opponent's expert. Boom! Zhou Zheng threw a punch at the sea below. Immediately, the punch directly set off a violent wave on the sea. The surrounding seawater also quickly spread outwards. It was these waves that directly pushed the main battleship forward. It's Teacher Zhou Zheng. Xia Shui saw the aura of the punch, and immediately knew that it must be Zhou Zheng, who was fighting in the sky. So strong! Zhang Ying saw that Zhou Zheng was fighting against the Abyss race's commander alone, and there was a trace of horror in his eyes. No wonder it was said that primitive emperors had the power to destroy the world. With such strength, there was nothing to say. How many people in the world could resist such strength? Chapter 1509. However, Zhou Zheng was having a hard time. The opponent's attacks were mysterious and unpredictable. Dozens of water arrows were shot out from the water surface from time to time. The power of these water arrows was also quite strong. They almost directly pierced through Zhou Zheng's body. Therefore, Zhou Zheng had to go all out in every attack to be able to block them. The difference in strength between the two sides was too great. The opponent's combat strength was at least at grade 6, or even grade 7 primitive emperor realm. But in fact, this was only the attack power of the abyssal race on the surface of the water. If the abyssal race appeared directly under the water, their combat power would increase even more rapidly. Fire in that direction. Since both sides were so close to each other, Zhang Ying could not let go of such a good opportunity. While the others were still waiting to watch the show, Zhang Ying gave the order to attack. Immediately, the main warship released a roaring light that resembled a fire dragon. Boom! The warship itself shook violently for a moment. Then, a terrifying shockwave quickly swept out and blasted forward. The water along the way evaporated. Boom! It hit. A circular vacuum with a diameter of more than 50 meters appeared on the surface of the sea. Even the abyssal race commander was startled by this. Sure enough, the equipment of these humans was quite powerful. Just this one shot. It wiped out tens of thousands of devouring Yuan clan members in the sea. Even the abyssal race commander was forced to dive into the ground. Whoosh! The abyss clan commander disappeared. When Zhou Zheng saw this, he quickly leaped into the air and glided through the air. He landed on the main warship. Phew! Zhou Zheng finally heaved a sigh of relief. After all, after landing, he finally felt a sense of security in his heart. Otherwise, the feeling of staying in mid-air would always make him feel uneasy. After landing, he could finally feel the true freedom. Teacher! Xia Shui quickly went up to him. The shot just now made Zhou Zheng look a little embarrassed. There were water stains on his body. However, Zhou Zheng had already dried his clothes with the use of his Yuan force. You brat! When Zhou Zheng saw Xia Shui, he was also furious. However, Xia Shui was also the most outstanding student of the Tianzong Academy. It was said that even Lord Evil Lord had personally come forward to guide Xia Shui. As such, there was nothing he could do about Xia Shui, who asked him to be so outstanding. Of course, he could only spoil such an outstanding person. Senior Zhou, Xia Shui risked her life to save me. Zhang Ying quickly stepped forward. He was worried that Zhou Zheng would blame Xia Shui for this. If Xia Shui's days in the Sky Sect Academy were not good, then Zhang Ying would be guilty. You must be Zhang Ying. Zhou Zheng did not say anything else. Looking at Zhang Ying and Xia Shui, it was good that they were fine. Since they were fine, the abyssal race commander might be a little tricky, but it was not like they had no chance. After all, the main battleship was quite powerful. Tell your men to get ready. We're going back, Zhou Zheng said. When they arrived, Zhang Hongliang had already set up everything in Binhai City. They would provide cover fire on the spot. Once the two sides met, there would basically be no problem. However, the problem was that the distance between the two sides was at least 180 miles. They had to rely on themselves to deal with the dangers of this 180 miles distance. Since Zhou Zheng was here, this responsibility naturally fell on Zhou Zheng's shoulders. Since you are the main commander of this battleship, I will listen to your orders. Let's go back together, Zhou Zheng said. The main threat was naturally handed over to Zhou Zheng. After all, none of these people could fight. Zhang Ying's eyes lit up. Zhou Zheng himself was a primitive emperor powerhouse. Since there was an additional primitive emperor expert on the battleship, there was no doubt that their combat strength would increase greatly. Even the soldiers on the battleship would be greatly encouraged and would be filled with confidence. In that case, they would go all out and kill their way back. All right, thank you for your help, Senior Zhou. Immediately, Zhang Ying handed over the battle mission. When Meng Lang and the others saw Zhou Zheng, Their faces were full of respect. Before they set off, this person had been standing with their commander. His status was definitely not simple. They did not expect him to be a mentor of Tianzong Academy. They had long known that Xia Shui was a disciple of Tianzong Academy. However, they did not care much about the disciples of Tianzong Academy. However, Meng Lang had seen Xia Shui in action and knew that her strength was not simple. He must not underestimate her. Immediately, the main battleship moved forward rapidly. Along the way there were sparks and lightning. All the weapons on the battleship were fully utilized. The bombardment on the surface of the sea made the Abyssal clan very hot. The entire sea was like a hot pot. Rumble! The large battleship broke through the surface of the sea quickly. This caused everyone's heart to be extremely excited. Zhou did not take action. The task that Zhang Ying had given Zhou was to lock onto the position of the Abyssal clan's commander and engage him at any time. As long as he could hold the Abyssal clan's commander back with sufficient ammunition, it would not be difficult to break out of the encirclement. Boom! The main battleship had advanced a distance of 80 miles. It was less than 100 miles away from the place where the battle would take place. However, this distance was already enough to make the Abyssal clan's members excited. They also erupted with a very strong counterattack. Boom! Suddenly, a powerful aura erupted from the surface of the sea. It's coming! Zhou Jing's eyes instantly locked onto a direction. However, after this aura, an even more powerful aura suddenly rushed out from behind him. What? Zhou Zheng was also shocked by the current situation. How could there be an even stronger aura? This was too illogical. This was too much. What? Zhang Ying's expression changed instantly. She was also a Yuan monarch. Otherwise, she would not have become a commander at such a young age. When she felt this aura, Zhang Ying felt a sense of despair and helplessness. The strength of the other party was too terrifying. Yang Fan Meng Lang, aim the god-slaying main cannon in this direction. Zhang Ying growled. In front of that even more powerful aura, a figure suddenly appeared, allowing Zhang Ying to see clearly. It was like a giant octopus standing on the surface of the sea. However, they were at least 200 meters apart. The light was too dim, and she could not see clearly. At this moment, Zhang Ying had no other choice. Aimed. Fire! Zhang Ying shouted angrily. Boom! Boom! A deafening explosion erupted. Even the cannon mount fixed on the deck directly cracked the deck. This was caused by the powerful recoil. It was as if there was a ball of blazing fire, like the sun, sweeping forward rapidly. The god-slaying main cannon. It could be said to be the most powerful weapon on the battleship. Basically, if an Yuan monarch elite were to face this cannon head-on, they would only be blasted into smithereens. This ball of fire lit up the sky. Everyone, including Zhou Zheng, looked over. The sudden appearance of the abyssal race was something that even Zhou Zheng had no confidence in. Furthermore, there were two of them. They were basically doomed. They had to kill one of them first. Only then would they have a chance at victory. The giant octopus standing on the surface of the sea did not dodge. Instead, it opened its mouth and swallowed the ball of fire. It had actually ate the god-slaying main cannon. When Meng Lang caught sight of this, his eyes widened. This was way too exaggerated. To think that the God-Slayer Master Cannon would be devoured by it. In this world, he had never seen such a strong living being before. This was way too scary. It's over. Zhang Ying's eyes were filled with despair. The other party could eat the god-slaying main cannon directly. Logically speaking, it should have exploded by now. However, the other party did not change at all. At the same time, it suddenly blasted an extremely powerful sound wave in the direction of the main battleship. It seemed to have formed the force of a tsunami. It directly pushed the main battleship to the back. Boom! The appearance of this force destroyed the main battleship along with the power it carried. With a loud bang, the main battleship lost its power and could only let the other party move freely on the surface of the sea. Continue. Zhang Ying had no other choice but to continue the attack with the god-slaying main cannon. It's still on cooldown. Yang Fan replied loudly. The god-slaying main cannon required at least 3 minutes of cooldown time to recover. If it were to be used forcefully, it would explode on the spot. Before the other party could attack, the main battleship would explode on its own. Prepare for a hand-to-hand battle. At this point, they could only fight to the death. The giant octopus seemed to be closing in rapidly from the surface of the sea. Zhou Zheng placed a hand on Xia Shue's shoulder. I'll send you out later. Since he was a teacher, he could not possibly say that he was running away. No matter what, he had to give Xia Shui the chance to survive. Sure. Just as everyone was preparing for the final battle, suddenly, a terrifying sword chi flew over from the surface of the sea. This sword chi split the seawater on the surface of the sea into two. The sword chi maintained the state of the seawater. Chapter 15:10. When the sword chi appeared, Yi Zichen was shocked. Naturally, Zhang Ying and the others also saw it. Although it was night time, the earth-shattering scene created by the sword chi was something that no one would miss. They all widened their eyes in shock. What? What is that? The sword chi quickly approached. Even the powerful Abyss Clan octopus on the sea looked back. Then with a loud bang, it was hit directly by the sword chi. The body of this giant octopus was easily cut into two halves on the surface of the sea. Splash! The corpse fell into the sea. Everyone stared at the scene in front of them, dumbfounded. This was too exaggerated. Zhou Zheng was also stunned when he saw this scene. He had never seen such a powerful sword chi. In the Shengyan dynasty, there were not many people who could reach this level. Whoosh! A figure landed on the warship. Brother Zhou Zheng, long time no see. When Li Zhongjie landed, Zhou Zheng suddenly looked at the person beside him. It turned out that Li Zhongjie had landed beside him without him noticing. When he saw Li Zhongjie, Zhou Zheng still thought that he was dreaming. You, evil lord. When Zhou Zheng saw Li Zhongjie's face clearly, he was shocked. Xia Shui naturally saw Li Zhongjie and immediately greeted Li Zhongjie in surprise. Evil lord. Since Li Zhongjie was here, it meant that all of them were now saved. Zhang Ying and the others saw that there was an additional young man on the deck. The latter looked extremely ordinary. Between his eyebrows, there was a sense of harmony, as if he was aloof from worldly affairs. However, if one looked carefully, it was the note of an expert who laughed proudly at the world. It was not that he was aloof from worldly affairs, but that there was nothing in this world that could compete with him. Evil Lord. Of course, Zhang Ying had heard of this name, but he never thought that he would be lucky enough to see the legendary Evil Lord. You're here too. Seeing that Xia Shui was also there, Li Zhongjie also greeted her. After all, Xia Shui still had a lot of potential. If she was properly cultivated, it would be very beneficial for the future of Tianzong Academy to cultivate a successor and a signboard. After that, Li Zhongjie did not continue to talk to the others. He pushed the sea surface with his palm. Immediately, the enormous warship began to move. Moreover, this speed was even faster than the warship at full power. It was practically 2 times the speed. Such a terrifying speed almost caused the main warship to fly above the sea. If Li Zhongjie wanted to make the warship fly, it would be easy, but there was no need. Just this speed alone was enough for the abyssal race to catch up. Go! The warship sped through the sea ahead. Li Zhongjie also threw out the peerless sword in his hand. Immediately, the unparalleled sword erupted with a terrifying flame power. In an instant, a firestorm formed on the surface of the sea. Boom! Raging flames burned on the surface of the sea. When this scene appeared, everyone's eyes widened. The abyssal race that had almost taken their lives and trapped them on the surface of the sea for an entire day had been incinerated so easily. Even the opponent's commander-level powerhouse did not manage to escape. He was directly incinerated, leaving his life behind in the sea. Behind them was a long wave of fire. Why are you here too? Li Zhongjie did not look worried at all, and actually began to chat with Zhou Zheng. After all, Li Zhongjie's cultivation was almost at its limit now. Before he made any new progress, he would probably maintain this state for a while. Therefore, Li Zhongjie had become more talkative now. It was not bad to chat with some old friends when he had nothing to do. I'm afraid you don't know that I'm now a teacher of Tianzong Academy, Zhou Zheng said. Oh, you're so smart. Back then, I guess Su Hong invited you several times, but I didn't see you go. Isn't that so? Although Zhang Ying did not have the heart to interrupt the conversation between the two, 3 commander-level abyssal race rushed out from the sea of fire in the distance. Senior, over there. Although the current speed of the ship was very fast, if these 3 commander-level existences caught up with them, they would definitely destroy the main warship. The other party had such strength. However, Li Zongjio did not seem to hear him at all. Then, a figure condensed on the peerless sword, Huo Wushuang, appeared, stepping on the void, and immediately saw the abyssal race rushing in front of him. With a wave of his hand, a flaming sword energy easily killed the 3 commander-level abyssal race. Raging flames curled up in front of him. Huo Wushuang's figure rose into the air. Then he retracted the flames on his body and landed lightly on the warship. You've broken through? Li Zongjio was very surprised to see Huo Wushuang. After such a long time, Huo Wushuang finally broke through the Absolute Saint Realm. Huo Wushuang's original body in his previous life was also at the Absolute Saint Realm, but later on, he wanted to set up a plan to annex the human race, so he hid from the Demon Suppression Palace and turned into 2 clones of the King of Fire and Sky Wu. Originally, the King of Fire's fate was to be devoured by Sky Wu. Then, Sky Wu took control of this powerful force and directly occupied the human race's world. However, the current situation was that Sky Wu was killed and Huo Wushuang survived. This kind of mysterious change was a little surprising. At least Li Zongjio was surprised. Now that Huo Wushuang had gone through several transformations, not only did his strength recover, but his strength had also broken through. The people on the ship also saw the sword that easily killed the abyssal tribe. Unexpectedly, a woman appeared. Moreover, this woman also had a devastatingly beautiful appearance. Everyone's eyes were fixed on her. They were attracted by Huo Wushuang's fiery red hair, and the clothes on her body that showed off her figure perfectly. I've broken through. Huo Wushuang nodded. Then he looked at the strangers around him. His eyes were filled with doubt. This is Huo Wushuang, my friend. Li Zongjio introduced him to the crowd. Zhou Zheng was the first to react. Huo Wushuang's strength was so powerful that the power that he had just unleashed was incomparably shocking. With such an expert in charge, it made everyone feel at ease. Indeed, he was the evil lord. Even if they were friends of the evil lord, they would at least be at the supreme state. Supreme Wushuang. Zhou Zheng hurriedly greeted. Huo Wushuang nodded at Zhou Zheng. Since Li Zongjio had introduced him, it meant that these people should be Li Zongjio's friends, and he had to give them some face. Huo Wushuang, who had broken through, did not need to enter the unparalleled sword. He only needed to carry the unparalleled sword and follow Li Zongjio. However, Huo Wushuang did not like to talk. The warship rushed over with a roar. When it appeared in front of the Binhai Navy, Zhang Hengliang's eyes were filled with shock. Oh my god, they actually did it! Then, Zhang Hengliang ordered everyone to attack, and they must protect one of the main warships. It would be ridiculous if they could not even save the ship in front of them. No, the Abyss clan seemed to have disappeared. There was no obstruction, and the warship arrived at the port easily. Many parties gathered, and Zhang Hengliang quickly led his men to board the ship. Greetings, Commander. Zhang Ying appeared in front of Zhang Hengliang unharmed, and then knelt down to Zhang Hengliang. Rise. Zhang Hengliang did not show much concern. After all, there were so many subordinates here. Commander, this is Senior Evil Lord, and this is Senior Huo Wushuang, and Senior Zhou Zheng. If not for the 3 of you, our ship might not have been able to return. Zhang Ying said. Then, Zhang Hengliang quickly looked over. What's going on? Why are there so many people on the ship all of a sudden? You are Lord Imperial Tutor, the protector of the nation. Zhang Hengliang immediately knelt down on one knee in front of Li Zongjio. When he knelt down, everyone in the navy knelt down as well. The person in front of them was the true protector of the nation. Moreover, he was the master of the current Emperor Xingyan. He was not someone who could be replaced by Evil Lord. Zhang Ying suddenly remembered. Indeed, the protector of the nation Li Zongjio was not as simple as Evil Lord. In the underworld, Li Zongjio was Evil Lord. But in the imperial court, at the official level, Li Zongjio was the true protector of the nation. How could they ignore etiquette? Get up, all of you. There's no need to kneel here and there. It's troublesome. Li Zongjie waved his hand and said. Behind him, a large group of people also stood up. This is not the place to talk. Imperial tutor, please rest in the mansion. I'll get someone to prepare some refreshments. Zhang Hengliang said. He did not expect such a big shot to come. With the authority of the imperial tutor, he should be the most powerful person in the entire Xingyan dynasty. Even the Emperor Xingyan had to listen to him. A person of such status naturally could not be neglected. Otherwise, with a single word, he could directly remove one's head from one's neck. Forget it, it's troublesome. Let's do it here. Show me the information here. Li Zongjie waved his hand and said. Obviously, Li Zongjie was not a person who liked corruption. Chapter 1511. Not only was he not corrupt, but he also liked efficiency and didn't like procrastination. Zhang Hengliang immediately understood what Li Zongjie meant. Obviously, for someone like Li Zongjie, time was very precious. There couldn't be a moment of delay. Then, Zhang Hengliang ordered his men to organize all the important information and set up a temporary meeting room on the main battleship. In the meeting room, the 8 main warships commanders, Zhang Hengliang, Zhou Zheng, Li Zongjie, and Huo Wushuang were present. There were a total of 12 people. Zhang Ying was in charge of introducing the situation. Zhang Ying had gone out to sea this time with a reconnaissance mission. He needed to figure out the situation of the abyssal race. Although he had lost a lot of people, the information he had obtained in the end was still pretty good. According to the information we've obtained, all the abyssal race are on an island 1,500 miles away from Binhai City. This island is called Golden Island because there are many minerals on this island. It was originally Binhai City's mining ground. However, the abyssal race invaded some time ago. Now Golden Island has become their base. According to our judgment, there are at least 1 million abyssal race members on Golden Island. Among them, there are at least 1,000 commander-level abyssal race members. Zhang Ying announced the results of this investigation. However, the data was very shocking. Not only that, we have also detected a stronger existence, temporarily named commander level. Their strength is at least equal to a supreme being. Above the commander level is the commander level. If I'm not wrong, the commander level abyssal race member is the strongest on Golden Island. A commander level abyssal race member was already a supreme being. Then, what kind of existence would a commander level abyssal race member be? Everyone felt a sense of fear just thinking about it. If these millions of abyssal race members attacked Binhai City at the same time, the Binhai Navy might not be able to resist. Therefore, this could be said to be a very dangerous situation. That's all? Li Zongjie asked. In other people's eyes, Golden Island had become a real hell on earth. However, in Li Zongjie's eyes, such a place was too weak. The forces on Golden Island weren't worth mentioning at all. With his strength, it wouldn't take long for him to kill all the abyssal clansmen on Golden Island. That's all the information we've gathered so far, Zhang Ying said. After all, from what they heard, Li Zongjie did not seem to be very satisfied with this intelligence-gathering operation. All right, Zhou Zheng, you can come with me. Bring the group of people from the Tianzong Academy to the island to gain experience. You're in charge of the big ship outside, right? Li Zongjie asked. Zhang Ying immediately nodded. Yes, I'm in charge of the main battleship Wind and Thunder. All right, you're in charge of driving the ship. Let's set off now. Everyone should rest on the ship. Tomorrow morning, we'll arrive at Golden Island. Don't worry about anything else. Li Zongjie said decisively. Things were that simple. They just had to set off with the people. We're setting off now. Zhang Hengliang and the others had just understood the situation. Setting off just like that. They only needed one main battleship? Could it be that they didn't need such a huge fleet of battleships? One ship was not enough to fill the gap between Golden Island's teeth. The current strength of the Binhai Navy was at most enough to protect the current Binhai City. They really didn't have the strength to attack Golden Island. However, no one dared to refute Li Zongjie's words. Instead, Zhang Ying saluted. Yes, Zhang Ying. For Zhang Ying, it didn't matter even if she had to sacrifice herself to have such an honor. The most important thing was to protect her country. She must eliminate these damned abyssal race. Zhang Hongliang wanted to follow, but he was the commander-in-chief. He couldn't leave Binhai City easily. He had to stay in Binhai City to oversee it. However, he also sent his personal guards to Zhongying. They were Yang Fan, Meng Lang, and the others. This elite team had rich combat and defense experience. They definitely wouldn't let Zhongying get injured easily. Zhongying didn't request to bring the rest along. In addition, some of the most basic combat personnel were transferred from the ship. After all, no one knew what the situation would be like in this battle at sea. They had to protect their lives. They didn't want to cause unnecessary damage. There were a total of 30 students from Tianzong Academy. All of them looked about the same age as Li Zhongjio. In terms of age, Li Zhongjio should be at the same age as the other party. However, the difference in status between the two was like heaven and earth. In front of Li Zhongjio, these people in front of him were basically like grandchildren. However, in reality, Li Zhongjio was more than 3,000 years old. Naturally, he was the same as these young people in front of him. On the deck, Zhou Zheng had already lined up neatly with the 30 people from Tianzong Academy. The eyes of these students were also filled with intense anticipation. Previously, when Xia Shui had returned, she had also told the others about Li Zhongjio's visit. Therefore, these students were all very excited now. They were lucky enough to see the legendary Evil Lord. He was the real founder of Tianzong Academy. Although Li Zhongjio didn't put in any effort, all the resources came from the White Deer Mansion. Therefore, Li Zhongjio was the real founder. When Li Zhongjio appeared in front of them, the boys and girls in front of them all widened their eyes and looked at each other. This ordinary-looking young man in front of them was the legendary Evil Lord? Could he be Evil Lord's son? However, they had long known that the person in front of them was Evil Lord. They just didn't dare to believe it. There were even detailed introductions in some books about Li Zhongjio. There were even portraits, although they weren't very vivid. However, Evil Lord gave off the feeling that he was an old man even older than Zhou Zheng. There was also an evil glint in his eyes. However, when they looked at Li Zhongjio, there was nothing. Evil Lord, just how evil was he? You are all from Tianzong Academy, right? Congratulations. Tomorrow morning, our ship will dock at Golden Island. I want all of you to go to the island alone and undergo a trial. Chapter 15:12. Training on the Island. When everyone heard this, they felt as if their hearts were struck hard, and they were stunned on the spot. What? Training on the island? Didn't they say that the island has been completely occupied by the Abyss tribe? Aren't we just sending ourselves to our deaths? I don't want to die yet. These disciples, who had never seen the world, started to wail and howl. After all, they weren't well-trained soldiers, even though they had received a period of training at the beginning. But in the face of such a matter of life and death, what else could they do? If they did not speak up now, they would lose their lives in the end. Tell me, isn't it miserable? Zhou Zheng was also quite worried. Although these disciples were indeed somewhat talented, they still needed to be given time to hone their skills. If you directly throw people out, then maybe in the end, only 2 or 3 people will be able to come back out of the 30 people who went out. These people could be said to be the first batch of disciples of the Tianzong Academy. With such a reputation, they must not mess it up. Who knows how many people were waiting for the Tianzong Academy to become a joke? Li Zhongjio observed for a while. Although most of them were panicking, there were still a few who were calmer and seemed to have realized that this was a very good opportunity. Now that the legendary Evil Lord was here to protect them, what was there to be afraid of? And if they could catch the eye of Li Zhongjio in this training, their future would be limitless. There would be a very good opportunity for them to break through directly, to reach a higher level. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Of course, they had to grasp it accurately. After watching for a while, Li Zhongjio also continued. Kill 100 Abyss tribe, and you will be rewarded with a 5th grade elixir. Kill 500, and you will be rewarded with a 6th grade elixir. Kill 1,000, and you will be rewarded with a 7th grade elixir. Kill 10,000, and you will be rewarded with a 8th grade elixir. Kill 100,000, and you will be rewarded with a 9th grade elixir. Li Zhongjio said word by word. When the first word elixir rang in everyone's ears. Everyone quieted down. They quietly looked at Li Zongjio, waiting for Li Zongjio to continue. The further down he went, the more abundant the rewards would be. Moreover, it was quite direct. The price was clearly stated, the number of kills and the amount of rewards. Everything was clearly stated. A 9th-grade medicinal pill. The legendary elixir. It was only at this moment that the crowd suddenly recalled that the evil dominator in front of them seemed to have concocted a pill that surpassed the 10th grade not long ago. Such a terrifying level was an extremely shocking power in the eyes of anyone. Can I join too? When Zhou Zheng heard this, he immediately felt his own breathing quicken. A grade 9 pill. 100,000. This was probably the closest he had ever been to a grade 9 pill. He hadn't expected that this young man would have such a good opportunity to come into contact with a grade 9 pill. For them, this was simply a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Even the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor wouldn't be able to offer such a reward. It was impossible for them to give out such a reward. It was too terrifying. Who could accept such a reward? Such a temptation was something that they had to complete even if they had to risk their lives. The students before them were only at the origin ancestor realm. It would take a lot of time and effort to kill the lowest level of the Abyssal clan. 100 of them was already an astronomical figure for them. However, to truly widen the absolute gap between them and the others, of course, depended on one's own strength and opportunity. When the opportunity came, one would be able to surpass the crowd. You take charge. Save one, and I will give you a reward. Li Zongjio said. If Zhou Zheng saved one, it meant that among these people, there would be people who would lose this opportunity to give away their elixir. However, for Zhou Zheng, this was also a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Finally, such an opportunity had come. Obviously, things like elixirs were completely worthless in Li Zongjio's eyes. They could be casually given out as rewards. However, this wasn't so simple for the others. Even if they wanted to obtain a grade 5 pill, they would have to go to the Sky Elixir Pavilion and spend a lot of money to buy it. Of course, Li Zongjio could also refine it. However, it was obvious that Li Zongjio didn't care about money at all. How could an elixir made by an ordinary alchemist compare to the one refined by Li Zongjio? Even if Li Zongjio refined a grade 6 pill single-handedly, it would still be better than a grade 7 alchemist who used all his strength to refine a grade 6 pill. May I ask, Evil Lord, if we kill 400 of them, will we be rewarded with 4 grade 5 pills? A petite girl in the crowd raised her hand and asked. Li Zongjio looked over. Although this girl looked like a child and was very young, her mind was very firm. When Li Zongjio announced the island trial, this little loli didn't say much. Instead, she was looking forward to Li Zongjio's next words. Obviously, she was also a person with ideas. Yes, you can exchange with me like this. Li Zongjio nodded and said. When they heard that Li Zongjio was actually willing to do this, everyone was stunned. Although it was difficult to kill 10,000 or 100,000 of them, it wasn't difficult to kill 1 or 200 of them. As long as they were given time, no one would be bad. In this kind of environment, if they worked hard, it would definitely be beneficial to their own cultivation. Moreover, even after they came out, this kind of elixir reward was simply giving away their cultivation for free. Where else could they find such a good thing? Now, is there anyone who wants to quit? Li Zongjio said lightly. Now, even if he asked them to leave, they probably wouldn't be willing to. Isn't it just a trial? Just treat it as serving the country. Yes, we are the dignified human race. Why would we be afraid of these demons and ghosts? One by one, they started to brag. They couldn't wait to go to the Golden Island and start killing. Each of you only has one chance to be saved. Of course, if I see that you don't work hard, I won't bother to save you. Because even if you are saved, you are just a piece of trash. Li Zongjio said lightly. Everyone's heart tightened. As expected of the evil lord. His way of doing things was so evil. It meant that he didn't like you. Even if you were to die, he wouldn't save you. Even if you were a disciple of the Sky Sect Academy. When Zhang Ying and the others heard Li Zongjio's promise of such a generous reward, they were envious. It would be great if he could have such a good opportunity. Chapter 15:13. However, they were already soldiers. Therefore, they couldn't shamelessly ask Li Zongjio to join them. The main battleship moved forward on the vast sea. All the disciples of the Tianzong Academy chose to conserve their energy. At the same time, they also prepared the weapons in their hands to kill the enemy, as well as their equipment and weapons. This was because a truly bloody battle was about to begin. When they arrive at Golden Island, they will know what they will be facing. Everything wasn't as simple as they imagined. Even thinking about it made them a little excited. As for Li Zongjio, he sat on the deck, facing the sea breeze as he cultivated. Although he didn't know the specific cultivation method, at least Li Zongjio could sense that if he wanted to break through the next realm, he would have to rely on his own comprehension. However, it was hard for Li Zongjio to say whether he could comprehend it or not. He could only rely on luck. Huo Wushuang also sat beside Li Zongjio, facing the sea breeze together. The latter also sat like that. Not only did Huo Wushuang recover his strength, but he also broke through to the second great absolute saint realm. This kind of breakthrough in strength surprised Li Zongjio. It seemed that Huo Wushuang also had someone behind him. If Li Zongjio wanted to destroy Golden Island, it would be too easy. However, Li Zongjio also needed to train these people. It just so happened that he had such an opportunity. It was mainly because Li Zongjio thought that almost everyone in the other worlds was good at fighting. But in the human race, aside from himself, there weren't many who were good at fighting. If something were to happen in the future, and they were to fight with others, then wouldn't they be at a disadvantage? Therefore, the most important thing now was to make these people aware of the crisis. They had to increase their strength. This was also the reason why Li Zongjio wasn't in a hurry to destroy the Abyss clan. The more peaceful the world was, the fewer experts there would be. Only in times of disaster could one truly enter the world of heroes. If you didn't give others a chance to explore, how could they prove their strength to you? Sometimes the method was also quite important. Even the Li family was the same. Now the Li family had almost no external enemies. If it weren't for the fact that Li Zongjio and Li Tianqing were holding the fort, the people in the Li family would have already started fighting. Otherwise, the group of people below would definitely engage in internal strife. It was hard to say what kind of massacre would occur between them. For the sake of fighting for power, it was normal for such internal friction to occur. Life was born in sorrow and death in peace. The main forces' warship sailed through the night, and their speed was extremely fast. Soon, they were 100 miles away from Golden Island. And they saw a light. Everyone looked over. Dawn rose, but at the same time, the entire Golden Island was revealed in front of everyone. Zhang Ying and the others were very familiar with Golden Island, but when they saw the island in front of them, they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. The reason why Golden Island was called this was because in the beginning, as long as there was light, Golden Island would show a golden light. From afar, it looked like a golden mountain floating on the sea. Even the trees on the mountain were yellow. But at this moment, Golden Island, it was no longer yellow. Instead, the whole mountain was covered in a kind of lifeless darkness. Even though they were nearly 100 miles away, they could still feel the power of darkness and death sweeping over from the mountain peak. The disciples of the Celestial Sect Academy also walked out of the cabin. Even Xia Shui could clearly feel that her heart seemed to be completely suppressed when she saw the huge dark mountain. Although he couldn't see any abyssal race at a glance, he could sense that countless abyssal race were hiding inside, ready to devour everything that came near at any time. Golden Island was just in front of them, but Xia Shui and the others' mood was extremely heavy. But for the elixir promised by Li Zongjio, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Of course, they couldn't give up. A single elixir was worth at least 10 years of hard work. If they could get 2 of them, they could get a 6th grade, or even a 7th grade elixir. When they break through, they would be in a peak state. How could one not take the risk to become a person above others? One must go through great risks. There was no such thing as a free lunch in the world. Junior brothers and sisters, do you have the confidence to fight? In the face of such a strong pressure, Xia Shui couldn't help but ask. At least she had to boost the morale. Xia Shui's cultivation was the highest among them, so she naturally had to shoulder the responsibility. Yes, Some people were afraid, so they used this method to release the fear in their heart. Although they knew that evil Lord was here, and they shouldn't have to worry about their lives, they should know that under such circumstances, the pressure wouldn't be reduced. Who knew if evil Lord would save them? What if he was too late? There were a total of 30 of them. If 2 or 3 of them were to encounter danger in different places, no matter how strong evil Lord was, he wouldn't be able to appear in different places in an instant. Therefore, it was impossible to count on Li Zongjie to save them. They couldn't put their lives in the hands of others. The one who controlled their own fate was still themselves. We're about to enter the shallow sea area. We can't go any closer. We can only lower the boat here and let you guys land on the island. Zhang Ying said. This moment was really coming. Everyone's heart gradually became nervous. They were about 10 miles away from the shore of Golden Island. Don't waste the boat, just swim over. Just as Yang Fan and the others were helping them to lower the small boat down, Li Zongjie suddenly jumped out and said, "What? Are you kidding me? Under the sea, there must be an abyssal tribe." Moreover, in the sea, the abyssal tribe's strength was obviously stronger, and the combat power they could display was also more terrifying. Furthermore, he had to swim under such circumstances. God knows how many times they had to die. Lord Evil Lord, this. Xia Shui quickly wanted to discuss with Evil Lord. This was too dangerous. Didn't they say that they would start the trial after landing on the island? But Li Zongjie wasn't the kind of person who would say so much to kids like them. He waved his hand. Suddenly, a strong force directly threw Xia Shui and the others into the sea. Splash! Splash! They fell into the water one after another. Moreover, Li Zongjie had also set up a restriction so that these people couldn't fly in the sea. They could only swim in the sea. Chapter 15:14. That's too cruel. We can't fly. There's a seal. The abyssal race is coming. Run. After these 30 people fell into the water, they immediately struggled like a group of grasshoppers. This was the first time they had encountered such an unexpected situation. They were directly thrown into the water. This was too sudden. Who would be able to take it? Everyone gather around me and form a circle. Use the crossbow. There was great resistance in the water. However, it would waste a lot of energy to slash at them. And the effect was not great. Their previous battle plan against the abyssal race was all to pull them out of the water. After coming to the shore, it was basically the human race's world. No matter how strong you were in the water, your strength would be greatly reduced on the shore. But now Li Zongjie directly threw all of them into the sea, directly into the main battlefield of the abyssal race. Wasn't this just sending them to their deaths? Only by defeating the enemy in the area that they were most proficient in could one truly defeat them. Otherwise, it would just be a coincidence. Therefore, this matter was very normal. Now this group of people was struggling in the sea. Li Zongjie, Zhang Ying, and the others were also watching from the ship. The abyssal race was already close, and there were already people who were fighting. Fortunately, Xia Shui's reaction was fast enough. She gathered everyone and used a specially designed crossbow. This crossbow was also equipped by Tianzong Academy. It was very powerful and had a very strong explosive force. In the water, it could be used to its full potential. In the chaotic battle, these disciples of Tianzong Academy performed well. At least they killed a few of them. However, some of the lethal weapons that these people had prepared were also used up. This was also Li Zongjie's purpose. If you can guess everything I do, then I'm the evil lord. How can you see through me? Since it was a trial, of course, it had to be done under the most difficult conditions. Only then would the trial be effective. The group of people also rushed to the Golden Island, battered and exhausted. However, the weapons they had prepared were all used up. Although they were on the shore, each of them had a bitter look on their faces. It was simply too tragic. This is troublesome. I just used up all my heavenly explosion pearls. Me too. I've used all my life-saving items just now. I've worked so hard to save all of them. What should we do? The group of people also had long faces. Xia Shui didn't even have the time to comfort these people. In the next moment, a mysterious force directly separated these people. Immediately, These people also discovered that they were actually transferred away. His companions had all disappeared at this moment. He was the only one left in the world. Needless to say, this was definitely Evil Lord's doing. Too ruthless. He directly teleported everyone away. Li Zhongjio's mind power had already surrounded the entire Golden Island. At the same time, it also temporarily restrained the powerful abyssal race, making them all stay where they were and unable to move. With Li Zhongjio's current mind power, it wasn't difficult for him to do this. Although it was dangerous, it wasn't too far away. There were a few unlucky ones who fell directly into the lair of the abyssal tribe, and then inexplicably began to fight. These abyssal race had used a strange liquid to cover the entire Golden Island. Mainly, they wanted to plunder the resources on the Golden Island and absorb some of the minerals to strengthen their strength. This was also a shortcut to quickly improve their strength. Although fighting on the Golden Island wasn't as good as fighting in the sea, the entire Golden Island had been corroded by the power of these abyssal race. Therefore, they could still move around freely. The entire Golden Island had also started a frenzied killing and fighting. Those who could run had already started to do so. Those who couldn't run also wanted to end the battle quickly. No matter the cost, they had to kill these abyssal race. Otherwise, the number of abyssal race would only increase. It was impossible to guard against. Boom, boom. The originally quiet Golden Island suddenly became quite lively. Zhang Ying and the others on the main warship were also very nervous as they watched the situation on the Golden Island. With such a big commotion, it was obvious that the other party had already started fighting. Zhou Jing's face was solemn as well. Wasn't this kind of pressure a little too much for these people? Don't be nervous. This day will come sooner or later, Li Zhongjio said. Then he sat on a platform that extended outwards from the main warship. He actually sat there and started fishing. Looking at the actions of this evil lord, everyone thought that this evil lord was here for a vacation. What kind of place was this? To think that he would come here to fish. This was too much. There were no more fish to catch in this area. Most of them were eaten up by the abyssal race. However, Li Zhongjio had to find something to do. Wu Shuang, after 1 hour, go and watch for me, Li Zhongjio said. It was obvious that Li Zhongjio did not intend to save anyone in the first hour. If he could not even hold on for an hour, then what was the use of him? If he died, then so be it. If he wasn't cruel, he would really think that this world was beautiful. Wu Shuang nodded. Then he leaped up and rushed to the sky above the Golden Island. However, he concealed himself. Wu Shuang was an absolute saint. Although he was only a weapon spirit now, he had only lost his physical body. If he possessed the unparalleled sword, his strength would be even more powerful. He would be more threatening. An hour later, Zhou Jing also went. After all, he was counting on Li Zhongjio to reward him with some pills. However, in just half an hour, 2 people had already been killed. Wu Shuang strictly followed Li Zhongjio's orders. He did not save anyone, and just watched as the 2 people were killed by the abyssal race. Soon after, more and more people were eliminated. These people were basically running away, and some of them even had one of their hands broken. Zhou Jing directly fished out 5 people. All of them were sent for treatment. As for Li Zhongjio, he did not feel anything at all. Even if they were disciples of the Sky Sect Academy, since they were trash, no matter where they went, they would be trash without any value. Zhang Ying and the others saw Li Zhongjio's attitude with their own eyes. To these people who were severely injured, and even dead, Li Zhongjio was not moved at all. Indifferent. Cruel. Chapter 15:15. Zhang Ying looked at Li Zhongjio, who was still sitting on the edge of the boat and fishing. He was also thinking in his heart, could it be that only by becoming such an indifferent existence could one stand at the peak of this world? Li Zhongjio in front of him, the name of the evil lord. In fact, Zhang Ying and the others had already heard of him. For this legendary big shot, although he seemed to be relatively indifferent now, compared to other big shots, he was already more approachable. At least Li Zhongjio's method was cruel. But it was also to help these rookies in training. Zhang Ying and the others had also gone through such training in the past. To be able to walk out of this hell of life and death, one would become a true warrior. Suddenly Li Zong raised his head. Zhang Ying and the others quickly looked over, still worried that Li Zongjio might have some orders. Of course, they had to be ready at any time. He killed 100 of them so quickly. Li Zongjio's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. Then he focused his mind on this outstanding person. Some people were able to sacrifice their lives within an hour. However, some people were able to slay 100 abyssal tribe beings in just half an hour. This was the gap. Some things were indeed innate. It's a little fatty. Who is this little fatty? Li Zongjio directly called Zhou Jing back, then projected the appearance of this little fatty in front of him. Oh, it's him. He usually keeps a low profile, but he's a ruthless person. His name is Luo Fugui, Zhou Jing said. He was specially recruited. He seems to have inherited the Titan race's bloodline. He's very strong. How can a person have children with the Titan race? Li Zongjio was also stunned. It's the origin soul inheritance. Understood. This Luo Fugui's performance is not bad. Li Zongjio said. Obviously, he was prepared to train this Luo Fugui well. After all, the potential of this generation of youths was obviously much better than the previous generation. Li Zongjio had thought about it before. In his previous life, he had already cultivated to that age. There weren't many people who could cross 3,000 years without dying. Those of the same generation as Li Zongjio did not rise up either. Zhang Biao was the only one who was familiar with the story. After all, Zhang Biao's tribe had always been well managed, and there had never been any problems. That was why Zhang Biao was still alive. Otherwise, they would soon disappear in the long river of this world. Of course, he did have some real talent. Otherwise, she would have been squeezed out of the company long ago. One was Luo Fugui, and the other was Xia Shui. In order to motivate these people, Li Zongjio directly transformed into a shadow and instantly appeared in front of Luo Fugui. Luo Fugui held a shield in one hand and a stone hammer in the other. When the person in front of him appeared, Luo Fugui was shocked. However, he still smashed the hammer in his hand down like a conditioned reflex. Boom! The hammer hit nothing. However, a huge hole appeared in the ground. This ordinary attack had such great power. If one's strength had not reached the Yuan King realm, they would not have been able to withstand this attack. Oh, your strength is not bad. Li Zongjio glanced at him. Luo Fugui also saw clearly that the person in front of him was Evil Lord. Senior Evil Lord. Luo Fugui was shocked. Could it be that his innate strength was against the rules? Was he going to lose his qualification? Everyone listen up. Luo Fugui took the lead to kill 100 abyssal tribe members, so he will be rewarded with an additional grade 5 elixir pill. Li Zongjio's voice spread throughout the entire Golden Island. Everyone on the island also heard Li Zongjio's voice. Instantly, everyone was excited by the reward. There was actually such an additional reward. Why didn't you say so earlier? How could these people understand Li Zongjio's temper? Anyway, he was a super divine alchemist. Rewarding him with elixirs was not a problem at all. Therefore, as long as they gave Li Zongjio an excuse, they would be rewarded even if they were in a good mood. After the announcement to the people on Golden Island, Li Zongjio also took out an elixir pill. This is a grade 5 elixir pill, the Overlord's Colossal Cauldron pill. After you consume it, you will be in the Overlord state for 3 minutes. It can increase your strength by 3 times in an instant. Li Zongjio said. Then he threw the elixir pill in his hand over. Luo Fugui's eyes lit up when he caught the elixir pill that Li Zongjio threw over. This is amazing. Luo Fugui was obviously a little too excited. Suddenly, 2 strong gusts of wind came from behind. 2 abyssal tribe members waved their sickles and smashed towards Luo Fugui's head. When Luo Fugui felt the gusts of wind, he subconsciously turned around and raised the shield in his hand. Bang! Luo Fugui was sent flying by the powerful force. He rolled a few times on the ground. Even the weapon in his hand fell to the side. Only the shield was left in his hand. Luo Fugui immediately got up and put away the elixir pill in his hand. At the same time, he looked in the direction of Li Zongjio. The latter had disappeared. Obviously, in the process of giving out rewards, they would not give you any protection. Fortunately, I reacted quickly. You two dogs actually dared to disturb my mood. Luo Fugue, who was originally happy, was directly interrupted by the sudden appearance of the two Abyssal Tribe members. The two Abyssal Tribe members did not understand what Luo Fugue was saying. In an instant, they stood up and charged towards Luo Fugue. However, Luo Fugue also used the shield in his hand as a weapon. Bang! In an instant, the two Abyssal Tribe members were sent flying. Li Zhongjie did not care about Luo Fugue's battle. Even if he was killed just now, he did not feel bad. Who asked you to lower your guard in such a situation? You are really looking for death. I said I would give you a reward, but I did not say I would let you lower your guard. On the other side, Xia Shui's killing speed had increased by a lot. Li Zhongjie thought for a moment. In order to stimulate the desire of these people to fight and achieve the effect of the crazy trial, he immediately waved his hand, and a wave of yuan energy condensed in the sky above the Golden Island. Then a few big words gradually appeared. Luo Fugue, 102 Xia Shui, 89 Ma Luotian, 73. Obviously, this was a trap. Li Zhongjie's mental energy was too strong. Not only did it suppress the high-level Abyssal Tribe members on the Golden Island, but it also locked on the situation of each person. At the same time, it was directly projected in the sky, so that everyone could see the specific situation of the top 3. Those who can maintain the top 3 will receive an additional reward every 2 hours. Chapter 15-16. When they heard Li Zhongjie's words, they were all stunned. Especially when it came to the island. Xia Shui, as the eldest senior sister, was actually defeated by Luo Fugue. She felt a little embarrassed. Luo Fugue, who had obtained the pill, would obviously have a stronger amplification effect. His killing speed would also be faster. Li Zhongjie's method of training was something that everyone would like. Even a piece of trash would have a lot of motivation. On this Golden Island, they would definitely have a good fight. As expected, when the island appeared, the speed of these people killing the Abyssal race became even faster. Out of the 30 people, 5 were eliminated at the beginning. Now that 2 hours had passed, another 10 people were eliminated. Zhou Zheng was also continuously bringing these people out. Li Zhongjie saw that these people seemed to be having it too easy, so he simply let out some half-step primitive emperors to rush out. Therefore, many people couldn't take it anymore. These people who were brought out could only be said to be a little unlucky, but it didn't mean that they were completely useless. Li Zhongjie also wanted to see how these people would perform after failing. Not everyone could always succeed. Even in the face of failure, they would be able to stand up bravely. In the future, they would also have greater achievements. It just depended on whether these young people could adjust their mentality. He often fought and killed outside. Now that he was suddenly training these young people, he felt very good. At least it felt very good. Another 2 hours passed. Xia Shui was in first place. He had finally made it to the first place. Li Zhongjie also rewarded her with a pill. However, the second place was no longer Luo Fugue. It was a relatively handsome young man. He was also good at archery. His name was Wang Jian. It was such a simple and direct name. At the beginning, Wang Jian didn't choose to take the initiative to attack and kill the Abyssal race. Instead, he was looking for a favorable terrain and set up many traps on the Golden Island. Using this method, he killed the Abyssal race one by one. He was a very strategic young man. Luo Fugue was barely in third place, but he often fell down and was replaced by other people. Therefore, there were often situations where people were replaced. Less than 2 hours passed. The 3 of them were also rewarded with medicinal pills from Li Zhongjie. It seems that these people have adapted well. 10 hours later, there were only 5 people left on Golden Island. They were Xia Shui, Luo Fugue, Wang Jian, Ma Luotian, and a girl named Chu Wen. All 5 of them performed well. Even Xia Shui, who was ranked first, had already killed more than 400. It was going to be close to 500 soon. But soon night fell. It was almost an entire day of fighting. For them, it was already the most tiring time. Basically, among these 5 people, the third place was also rotated once, so they also received the medicinal pill as a reward. However, Xia Shui, who was ranked at the top, had a total of 5 pills. What Li Zhongjiu saw at present was that Xia Shui had not used this medicinal pill yet. Obviously, he was preparing to use it in the final sprint. The people on the main warship were also stunned. They didn't expect Xia Shui and the others to be so strong. Some of them were eliminated in less than half an hour, but Xia Shui and the others had all the way to the present. Moreover, they were still persevering. Li Zhongjiu often condensed some wonderful scenes directly in the sky with his yuan energy and presented them in front of these rookies. It was also to let these people know thoroughly. These guys who were usually low-key were actually so powerful. Xia Shui also felt the real pressure for the first time. These guys usually don't show their strength, but now they are so powerful. They want to checkmate me. Xia Shui suddenly felt the pressure of her position, as the first place was particularly great. If she didn't work hard, she really couldn't withstand these people. After the pressure of these people chasing her, Xia Shui also felt that her combat experience had become richer, and her body was filled with fighting spirit. Li Zhongjiu looked at the darkening sky and suddenly thought of a plan. Then, he directly sent a voice transmission and suppressed all the abyssal race on the Golden Island, so that they couldn't move. Rest for tonight. All the abyssal race will be suppressed in place. You can recover on your own. When they heard Li Zhongjiu's voice transmission in the sky, Xia Shui and the others felt relieved. Xia Shui and the others also let out a sigh of relief. They thought in their hearts that at least this evil dominator was still very humane. He knew to let them rest for a while. One must know that after a series of battles, even machines couldn't withstand it. It was really too difficult. Wang Jian was originally less than 20 meters away from an abyssal race. Just as he was about to engage in close combat, the abyssal race suddenly stopped. Then, he was directly smashed into the ground by a strange force, and could no longer move. Then, he heard Li Zhongjiu's voice transmission. I see. He looked at his red and swollen right hand. Fortunately, the intensity of his usual training was about the same. Otherwise, this hand of his would probably be crippled. This evil lord was really evil. He didn't even let them take a breather. As soon as they got off the ship, they started fighting. Until now, they hadn't eaten anything at all. In fact, they were about to collapse. Now they finally had some time to rest. It was also good for them to rest and adjust their condition. Of course, the people on the ship also heaved a sigh of relief. In fact, they were also very nervous as they looked at the intense battle before them. Just watching the battle was already so nervous. Needless to say, those who were participating in the battle were having a hard time. Now that they could rest, they were happy for them. At least they had a chance to recover their stamina. On the Golden Island, it was extremely dark. Xia Shui leaned against a tree. She was eating a piece of bread in her hand. Although this bread couldn't replenish Xia Shui's elemental energy, it had become a habit. However, it had become a habit. Xia Shui also liked to eat these things. It was a small hobby. Her clothes were also badly damaged. She had never experienced a battle like this. If she could, she would have taken a bath immediately. But she raised her head and looked at the ranking. The second place was only 2 abyssal races away from her. This Wang Jian is really a jerk. As the first seat, Xia Shui naturally wouldn't allow anyone to surpass her. But this guy really hit it too well. Xia Shui had even thought about it. When she returned, she must teach this guy a lesson. Chapter 15-17. Late at night. Although Xia Shui had also relaxed at this moment, and was trying her best to recover her energy, there was a strange feeling in her heart. It seemed that this matter would not end so easily. After all, Li Zhongjiu never played his cards according to common sense. Who could stop him? Therefore, although Xia Shui was in a half-rested state, she did not completely trust Li Zhongjiu's words. She really relaxed her vigilance and rested. Indeed, in the second half of the night, Li Zhongjiu actually unsealed the Abyss race directly. Then the Abyss race sneaked up on those who were sleeping. There were only 5 of them left. After such a sneak attack, there were only 3 of them left on the entire Golden Island. 2 of them were directly eliminated. What a pitiful bunch. Even when the 2 of them were brought to the main warship, they did not even realize what was going on. How? How did I? Damn, we were tricked. The two of them also wondered if Evil Lord would release the Abyss race in the middle of the night to sneak up on them. But on second thought, the evil Dominator had always been a man of his word, and always kept his promises. Therefore, they chose to believe in Li Zongjio. Because they had consumed too much energy, they could not keep up with the recovery. Therefore, during the rest process, they fell into a deep sleep. When they opened their eyes again, they were already back on the main warship. Everyone was incomparably surprised. Even those who were eliminated at the beginning were originally asleep. But when they heard the commotion on the deck, they came out to take a look and found out that Li Zongjio had activated the Abyss race in advance. Zhang Ying saw everything Li Zongjio did with his own eyes. With such strength, he tricked the disciples of the academy. A teacher like Li Zongjio was really the first. They could not believe that Li Zongjio would do such a thing. Luo Fugue, who was escaping, used the shield in his hand to block the attacks of dozens of Abyss race. Sleeping in the middle of the night was simply too thrilling. Not long after he fell asleep, he vaguely heard some movement. Fortunately, he reacted quickly enough. Otherwise, he would have been disqualified from the sneak attack just now. Mother of God, where did this evil lord get his wicked taste from? Strictly speaking, they were all disciples of Li Zongjio Academy. Li Zongjio was their real manor head. There had never been a manor head who had the ability to trick his disciples like this. I must complain to Li Zongjio when I get back. He had to tell the dean. This evil lord was clearly toying with them. As an archer, Wang Jian was quite lucky. He had the habit of setting traps. So when the Abyssal tribe got close to him, they immediately triggered the traps. Without saying a word, he immediately woke up and entered battle mode. As expected, Li Zongjio's words could not be trusted. It was another thrilling battle. Let's wait until the sun rises. Li Zongjio thought of another plan. He did not expect that controlling the world's rules would be such a fun thing. He could directly control everything in the palm of his hand. He immediately stretched out his hand. Then he gathered the remaining 3 people together. They could not resist this power. They could only watch as they were sent to an unfamiliar place. Then they finally saw their companions. Golden Island was too big. Additionally, when Li Zongjio released the Abyssal race, he made sure to control their positions very well. Therefore, these people didn't have the opportunity to meet each other. But now he actually took the initiative to gather the 3 of them. Among them, Xia Shui had already killed 731. As expected of the first seed of Sky Sect Academy, this kind of comprehension and innate talent in battle was also displayed incisively and vividly. Under such high pressure, some people could not bear it. But some people could go against the flow and directly adapt to it. They could even break through under this pressure. It could be said that the remaining 3 had such characteristics. Xia Shui, Luo Fugue and Wang Jian. Why are you guys here? The 3 of them said almost at the same time. But after saying that, their faces suddenly became strange. Because when something unusual happened, it meant that Li Zongjio had a new idea. Could it be? Everyone on the main battleship was also awakened by Li Zongjio. Even Zhou Jing's heart ached for these children. Such good children, but they were tortured to this state by Li Zongjio. It was simply frightening. Congratulations to the 3 of you for staying until the end. Now there's a new special segment. Special segment. When they heard Li Zongjio's words, whether it was on the ship or the people on the island, their hearts skipped a beat. It was as if they were lifted by someone. Chu Wen and Ma Luotian, who were eliminated in the sneak attack, looked at each other. What kind of strange move was this? Next, the 3 of you can work together. I will summon an Abyss Tide, and each tide will last for 20 minutes. There will be a 10-minute break in between. Whoever survives a round will be rewarded with a grade 6 pill. Li Zongjio's voice sounded like a demon singing beside one's ear. Although he was trying his best not to believe this fellow's words, his body was very honest. He felt as if he had already taken the grade 6 elixir pill into his pocket. Abyss Tide? Doesn't that mean something similar to a beast tide? There will be thousands, or even more Abyss tribe members rushing over at the same time. Fuck. I want to quit. Luo Fugue's face hung a trace of a bitter smile. This kind of thing seemed to be a choice for them. Since Li Zongjio had already said those words, how could he let you leave so easily? This won't be a problem, right? The corner of Zhou Jing's eyes twitched. This Li Zongjio really knew how to play. He came up with all sorts of methods. However, once the beast horde broke out, and there were only 3 people in front of them, they didn't even have any defensive fortifications. Basically, they would be trampled on by anyone. It was quite dangerous. If they didn't control it well, they would lose their lives. Don't worry, it'll be fine. Li Zongjio's face was gentle. Such a fun thing must be popularized. Even Li Zongjio didn't want to destroy this golden island. It was a good opportunity to use the Abyss tribe members on this golden island to train these kids. Otherwise, how could the Tianzong Academy compete with others? It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. These Abyss tribe members would be the whetstones. Hearing Li Zongjio's words, the Tianzong Academy disciples behind him couldn't help but take a step back. This was too scary. How could someone have such a strange idea? Was this something a human would do? How could a normal person do something like this? Chu Wen at least heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, she was sent out during the sneak attack. Otherwise, she would have to face the beast tide now. Li Zongjio presented the scene of Golden Island. It was displayed in front of everyone. Although the 3 of them weren't very willing, they were just saying it. At least, they had to withstand the first wave. 6th grade pill. It was only 20 minutes away from them. How could he not seize such an opportunity? They had to hold on even if they died. Hence, under Xia Shui's command, Luo Fuguei directly moved several large stones, forming a barrier in front of them. Wang Jian also quickly piled up some traps that had taken shape. Just as they were preparing, suddenly, there was a tremor in front of them. Such a strong tremor also shocked everyone. At this moment, they could see the trees in front of them falling to the sides. Luo Fuguei in front. Wang Jian ranged. I'm in charge of killing. The number of kills will be divided equally. Show me your true strength, Xia Shui said in a deep voice. However, when the beast tide appeared in front of them, the 3 of them were still shocked by this terrifying movement. They stood there in a daze for at least 3 seconds. Damn, there are at least 100,000 of them. Chapter 15:18. How could he do this? Wherever his gaze passed, it was filled with the surging black masses of abyssal clan monsters. And the speed of these abyssal monsters was extremely fast. Boom! They wanted to complain about Li Zongjio, but the abyssal monsters in front of them didn't give them any chance. The first wave of attacks had already hit the ground. Wang Jian also used the arrow in his hand to shoot out a ring of fire in front of him. Many of the traps were triggered, tearing the abyssal tribe into pieces. But there were too many of them. At this moment, the stones that were prepared were instantly broken through. Luo Fuguei's grip on the shield was also firm. He wouldn't let go even a little bit. If he did, he would be dead for sure. Xia Shui stepped on Luo Fuguei's shoulder. Then, she released an extremely cold sword qi, killing the abyssal monsters in front of her. But there were too many of them. I can't hold on anymore. Take the pill. Luo Fuguei roared. After all, he was the main target of the attack. The attacks of the abyssal tribe seemed to be endless. Luo Fuguei couldn't bear it any longer, so he immediately roared. Luo Fuguei swallowed the overlord pill that Li Zongjio rewarded him. If he wanted to resist this beast tide, he couldn't do it without taking the pill. Ugh! It had only been 2 minutes, but it felt like 2 days had passed. It was hard to resist. After taking the overlord pill, Luo Fuguei's aura exploded. Boom! Within a radius of 20 meters there was a vacuum. The surrounding abyssal monsters were all blown away and shattered. Get down! Luo Fuguei smashed the shield in his hand on the ground. Immediately, a crack appeared in front of him. Some of the abyssal monsters fell into the crack. Wang Jian was quick to react. He knocked an arrow on his bow and fired a flaming arrow into the crack. Boom! The raging flames, coupled with some of the explosive power, killed a group of abyssal monsters. Then, Luo Fuguei swung his shield in another direction. Another crack appeared on the wall. Xia Shui also quickly released the sword qi in her hand. The sharp and terrifying sword aura froze the abyssal clan in the crack into ice cubes. The sharp aura that followed shattered them all. The effects of the Overlord pill could only last for 3 minutes. 3 minutes later, Luo Fuguei originally thought that he would enter this weakened state, but he didn't expect that his state didn't weaken at all, and his body had improved a little. Fuck, this medicinal pill is too awesome. You guys should eat as well. It turned out that the Overlord pill in his hand could not only increase his strength for a short period of time, but it could also allow him to absorb the energy within it. Therefore, after the effects of the pill ended, not only would he not enter a weakened state, his strength would also increase to a certain extent. It was different from the kind of pill that purely increased one's explosive power. As expected of a pill concocted by Evil Lord, just this alone was enough to shock everyone. They couldn't believe that such a powerful pill existed. Take turns to take it. We have to hold on for 5 minutes with each pill. The effects of the pill could only last for 3 minutes, but the beast tide would last for 20 minutes. Up until now, they had only held on for 5 minutes. If they only relied on this pill, they might only be able to hold on for 1 round at most. Therefore, in the process of taking the pill, they had to try their best to stimulate their potential as much as possible. This time, it was Xia Shui who took the pill. At the same time, Xia Shui also gave Luo Fuguei 2 pills. If you can't hold on, we'll all be wiped out. In such a tense moment, Luo Fuguei didn't waste any time, nor did he act pretentious. As soon as Xia Shui consumed the elixir, she could feel a powerful energy gathering in her body. Then, Xia Shui dashed out and circled around the area, wiping out all the Abyssal tribe members. Under Xia Shui's sword, there were no intact corpses left. They were all basically turned into scrap. Xia Shui couldn't hold on for 5 minutes. She barely managed to hold on for 4 minutes. Then, she couldn't hold on any longer. She immediately retreated. Let me give it a try too. After Wang Jian finished speaking, he took the pill. The pill that Li Zhongjiu gave them was the Overlord pill. The effect of this pill could save their lives, and it also allowed them to kill more Abyssal clan members easily. In 10 minutes, Xia Shui and Luo Fuguei directly killed nearly 600 Abyssal clan members. This was equivalent to a day's worth of results for each of them. It was simply unimaginable. After taking the pill, Wang Jian entered a state of true harvesting. The bow in his hand could easily kill a column of Abyssal clan members with a single arrow. In an instant, the column of Abyssal clan members in front of him was pierced through, and after that, a terrifying explosive force was formed. Therefore, these Abyssal clan members self-destructed one after another. The people on the main warship watched the cooperation of the 3 people, and their blood boiled. It seemed that they were completely infected by this struggle of power. These people's tenacious fighting spirit was really admirable. Zhang Ying was even more shocked. This was because Li Zhongjiu only spent a day to cultivate these young people, who had not even had much experience in Jianghu, into battle-hardened experts. Compared to the beginning, they relied on their own talents. It took more than 10 minutes to fight one Abyssal clan member, but now they had found a way to accurately use the sword in their hand to kill the enemy in front of them within 2 moves. Even 2 moves were considered a lot. There were even faster, basically killing 1 or 2 with 1 move. Simple and efficient. This kind of simple and direct attack was not something that could be done directly. It required hundreds of battles and countless repetitions to turn all the moves into this 1 move, and finally merge them into this 1 move. This was the real definition of turning complexity into simplicity. Straightforward and direct. It had only been a single night, but these people had already become experienced veterans. Zhang Ying looked at Li Zhongjiu's figure. Was this the realm of an expert? It was really incredible. Of course, the premise was that they had a strong enough strength to guarantee it. Otherwise, if ordinary people used this method, it was basically an act of suicide. Chapter 15-19. Only a powerhouse of Li Zhongjiu's level was in charge. Li Zhongjiu also gave these people dawn. Moreover, these dawn were absolutely good dawn. Although Li Zhongjiu only gave them 5th grade dawn, but it was a 5th grade dawn refined by an alchemist of this level. It was enough to easily beat the 6th grade pill, refined by an ordinary 6th grade alchemist. Otherwise, this 11th grade pill would not be so easy to refine. This was the gap between the realms. One had to admit that some people were so powerful. Zhou Zheng was also dumbfounded by the sight. He was not stupid. Li Zongjio had been pressuring them all the way here. But he also left them a way out. As long as they were decisive enough, smart enough, and have enough willpower, they could continue. But as for how far they could go, that would depend on their own willpower. Li Zongjio was actually training them. Otherwise, if the top abyssal clan was released, they could easily get rid of them. Therefore, Li Zongjio's seemingly bad taste was actually real control. Only when one had complete control over the entire situation could one play freely here. Otherwise, the situation would have been even worse. These people in front of them were the abyssal clan, who killed without batting an eye. In their eyes, humans were just delicious food and nourishment. They would not have the slightest mercy. If they did not control it well, they would be dead. It was because of this powerful strength that Li Zongjio was able to grasp the details so well. The first 15 minutes were still manageable. Until the last 5 minutes. The three of them had to take pills at the same time to be able to withstand it. Boom! After a bloody battle, a small piece of the shield in Luo Fugue's hand had been cut off. Under such a terrifying attack just now, it was very good that Luo Fugue's shield could withstand until now. As for King Arrow, he only had 3 arrows with special abilities left. After all, the basic attacks were all arrows condensed from one's own dark force. However, if it was a physical arrow, its power would be enormous, and it would have such unexpected effects. Now only 3 were left. Even Xia Shui's sword was damaged. There were several nicks on the blade. But in comparison, their physical strength and willpower were almost exhausted. It was precisely at such a time that it would be a very difficult test for a warrior. Moreover, they all knew that they couldn't hold on for much longer in the second round. Rather than wasting pills, he might as well give up now. A normal person would definitely think the same. Even the people on the main battleship were thinking that they should just give up. Even if they continued to fight, it would only be a waste of energy. However, Xia Shui and the others were still checking their weapons and equipment, ready to fight at any time. Use fire. Xia Shui and the other 2 had no intention of leaving at all. They were just thinking about how to deal with the next beast tide. As a powerhouse, he would never back down. Therefore, he had to make ample preparations for his own strength. In the face of any difficulties, he could not back down. If there is no path of retreat behind you, then you must persevere. Under Xia Shui's command, the corpses of the abyssal clan were piled up together and set ablaze. The abyss race was most afraid of fire. As long as a path was created to kill the abyss race in front of them, it would be considered a success. But compared to the beast tide just now, such a flame was indeed a little too small. It was estimated that each of the abyss race would be able to extinguish the flame with a single breath. But now there was no other way. If you want to back out of this round, I can keep the rewards of the first round and compensate you with the pills you have consumed. But if you want to continue, then follow the normal procedure. I just want to see how you look when you give up. Li Zongjio's voice was heard on the Golden Island again. For Xia Shui and the others, this kind of temptation was definitely a fatal attraction. Even Luo Fugue wanted to raise his hand and say that he gave up. At the very least, he would be able to take back the pills that he had consumed. However, he quickly dispelled the idea. After all, the 3 of them had experienced Li Zongjio's strength in less than 2 days. Who would dare to take up Li Zongjio's challenge? Who knew if something worse would happen later? It would be too late for regrets. So they had to follow the original plan. We choose to continue, Xia Shui said to the empty space. She did not know if Li Zongjio could hear her. In fact, Xia Shui and the others did not know that their current situation was being displayed in front of the others. But the number of kills could still be seen clearly. In the short 20 minutes just now, the total number of Abyssal Clan members killed by the 3 of them had reached 3,000. Of course, it was an accumulation. Some of them were only injured and did not really die. In fact, towards the end, they were already resisting the attacks. They thought that Li Zongjio would do something strange. But Li Zongjio suddenly stretched out his hand and waved. Immediately, 3 rays of light fell from the sky. With a boom, they landed in front of the 3 of them. Boom! It was a huge green shield that landed in front of Luo Fugue. This is, looking at the patterns engraved on the green shield. There was also a heavy and steady feeling that was released from it. What a powerful shield! When Luo Fugue stretched out his hand to grab the shield, he immediately knew what was in his hand at this moment. Black Tortoise Shield. Xiaoshui also got a sword. The power of this sword was above the power of her original sword. Water Frost Sword. Xiaoshui was also shocked. In front of Wang Jian, it was an orange-yellow treasure bow. This is Fierce Sun Bow. Just from the aura that erupted from these 3 weapons, they could already tell that they were all divine weapons. This is too extravagant. Those are divine weapons. Everyone was shocked. Li Zongjie waved his hand and directly rewarded them with 3 divine weapons. Don't be too happy. Why? Are divine weapons rare? Li Zongjie could not help but frown. He said it so casually. His attitude made people want to go up and punch him. Chapter 1520. Indeed, in Li Zongjie's eyes, divine tools and the like were completely worthless. Li Zongjie had obtained these things from the sacred martial realm. As for where he had obtained them, he had long forgotten about them. They had suddenly appeared in his storage ring. Since that was the case, he might as well take them out and let these people have a good time. At this moment, the 3 people who had unintentionally obtained these divine weapons on Golden Mountain could not react in time. Even within the 3 great empires, it was impossible for them to take out the divine weapon as they pleased. Taking out 3 divine weapons at once, it was as if they were free gifts. There were actually so many benefits after becoming strong. The people on the ship felt their blood boiling. That was because these were divine weapons. After obtaining a divine weapon, one's combat power would instantly increase by more than 10 times. The feeling of having one's strength suddenly increased was something that everyone would like very much. Some of them had even been dreaming of the arrival of this day. In fact, you don't even need to cultivate to have such powerful strength. Who wouldn't want to experience it? Originally, if they had worked harder and been more careful, they would have had a chance to obtain a divine weapon. Who knew that they would be rewarded with a divine weapon at the last moment? If they had known, they would not have come down even if they were to die on Golden Island. At the very least, they would have wanted to see what the divine weapon looked like. None of them had actually seen it before. Now they could only envy Xiaoshui and the others. The 3 people who had obtained the divine weapons, help were obviously in top condition at this moment. Li Zongjie looked at the time and saw that it was almost time. With a snap of his fingers, the entire Golden Island began to tremble. Even the seawater around the Golden Island began to form huge waves one after another. They were constantly slapping out and attacking along with the huge waves. The people on the warship also looked over. They were even more nervous than the people on Golden Island. Xiaoshui and the others also knew that Li Zongjie could give them divine weapons, which would bring them even more pressure. It was impossible for him to let them have an easy time. In the hands of Li Zongjie, they would not be able to gain any advantage. Boom! Immediately, a look of horror appeared in Xiaoshui's eyes. That is, in their line of sight, a group of extremely powerful abyssal race members charged out. These abyssal race members opened their arms, and there was a transparent object connected to their bodies. He leaped from the top of the mountain and glided down. When he spread his wings, it looked like a pair of wings. Boom! Fight! Xiaoshui shouted. Luo Fugue raised his shield. Buzz! A powerful energy shield instantly appeared in front of them, protecting the 3 of them. At the same time, Wang Jian shot dozens of arrows into the sky. Boom! The arrow that was shot out also carried a trace of destructive power. A blazing aura erupted from the ardent sun bow. The terrifying power of the ardent sun bow also came from it. But just this move also exhausted half of Wang Jian's essence energy. Although divine artifacts were powerful, they could not withstand more than 2 moves. It was the same for Luo Fugue. The defensive barrier that erupted from the black tortoise shield in his hand was almost unbreakable. The opponent had no chance to break through. But Luo Fugue could not maintain it for too long. Just now, the abyssal race members that were equivalent to primitive emperors in the sky were all shot to death. One arrow was enough to kill them. In just 30 seconds. At this moment, around the black tortoise shield, there were already tens of thousands of abyssal race members surrounding it. It was so overwhelming that they could not even see the situation outside. They could only see the figures of the abyssal race members in front of them. Boom! Luo Fugue's essence energy was exhausted. Immediately, the light of the black tortoise shield disappeared. Finally, the abyssal race members directly fell down. However, Xia Shui had already prepared this last big move. Boom! 1,000 miles ice seal. In just a blink of an eye, wherever the sword aura reached, everything was directly turned into ice. It was covered by this powerful ice and snow power. Boom! But it did not have any effect. Although the abyssal race members in this circle were all frozen. But the abyssal race members behind also took the place of the fallen and broke the ice sculptures. At the same time, they directly charged towards the three of them. Even if they obtained a divine artifact, it could not change anything. After all, the attack this time was too powerful. Xia Shui's sword strike had already consumed all of her origin energy. Although the divine artifact was powerful, the amount consumed was too terrifying. It was completely unbelievable. At the same time, the three of them saw darkness in front of them. It seemed that someone was forcefully grabbing their shoulders. After walking in the darkness for a while, they finally put them down. Bang! The three of them landed on the ground. But they also held the weapons in their hands tightly. They did not wake up. Let's go back first, Li Zongjie said. On the warship, Xia Shui and the other two were just lying in the open, because the consumption of this battle was too great. Therefore, they didn't have any strength left. Although they wanted to continue, they had already struggled to their limits. Under normal circumstances, if there was such a serious overdraft, it would be very dangerous for the cultivator. But fortunately, they met Li Zongjie, the overlord pill that they had taken before. Just at this time, the remaining effect of the pill was released. All of it was replenished in their bodies, allowing them to obtain better absorption. With such conditions, when he recovered, he would definitely be full of vigor and vitality. Moreover, he would also have a greater breakthrough. There was no doubt about this. See, this is what it means to try your best. Li Zongjie looked at the remaining students. Now there were only 28 of them left. Two of them, Li Zongjie saw that they did not look like good people. So he directly let them die in the hands of the abyssal race. Just as well, he used their corpses to tell these people in front of him. He was not joking. It could really kill people. Now this group of people also lowered their heads in shame. It had to be said. The three of them did have outstanding willpower. If it were them, they would have been defeated long ago, or even given up. At least they still had a lot of energy left. But these people lying on the deck in front of them were the ones who really gave it their all. They did not have any energy left. It was admirable. Sometimes in a group of geniuses, one only needed to nurture two leaders. In other words, they could directly set an example for the rest of them to pull themselves together. In fact, if this example was outstanding, some of the people behind would also think that they had incredible strength and achieve even greater things. When Zhou Zheng, Zhang Ying, and the others saw Li Zongjie standing with his hands behind his back, they were simply stunned. Unfathomable. This was the true definition of unfathomable. Chapter 1521. The main battleship sailed back again. After a day and night of battle, this group of students needed to recuperate. At the same time, such a high-intensity battle had benefited them greatly. After that, they would have a good understanding of their own battles. They would definitely have a better breakthrough in the future. Li Zongjie temporarily stayed in Binhai City. He could use this opportunity to nurture and educate the disciples of the Tianzong Academy. Zhang Hengliang was naturally happy that Li Zongjie was staying here. This way, the safety of Binhai City would be greatly guaranteed. At the same time, he would have the opportunity to communicate more with people like Li Zongjie. It just so happened that his daughter was already at the age to get married. However, This darn girl only knew how to stay at sea and hang out with the army every day. This gave Zhang Hengliang a headache. When Zhang Hengliang called Zhang Ying to the study, he told her clearly to interact more with Li Zhongjio. Last, this is such a good opportunity. If you can become Imperial Tutor's pillow, our Zhang family will be able to prosper. Besides, is there a better man in this world than Imperial Tutor? Zhang Hengliang also had a look of disappointment on his face. Zhang Ying rolled her eyes helplessly. Only her biological father could think of this. Father, he's Imperial Tutor. Such a young state preceptor would definitely be eye-catching no matter where he went. There were countless nobles who wanted to give their daughters to Li Zhongjio. If they could get such a relative, it would be a blessing of 3 lifetimes. How many women in this world didn't want to marry Li Zhongjio? What's wrong? Our Zhang family is the governor of the Binhai Navy. You are the governor's daughter. Aren't you worthy? You have to know that our identities aren't bad either. Zhang Hengliang said proudly. Pride was written all over his face. However, if one were to compare his status with Li Zhongjio, according to common sense, he was barely qualified. However, Zhang Ying had seen Li Zhongjio's methods. He knew Li Zhongjio's strength. Their realms were also unbelievably strong. Zhang Ying reckoned that even Li Zhongjio did not care about the Imperial Tutor's position. It was the Shengyan dynasty that was basking in Li Zhongjio's glory. Father, don't let your imagination run wild here. Imperial Tutor's realm is different from ours. Zhang Ying said. As a young girl, when she saw a powerful and charming man like Li Zhongjio, she couldn't help but be attracted to him. However, after witnessing Li Zhongjio's true methods, Zhang Ying knew that it wasn't an exaggeration to call him a god. Therefore, on this level, there was a huge gap. Zhang Ying knew that he couldn't be delusional. The gap was indeed too big. In the following period of time, Li Zhongjio refined all the elixirs for the students. Although Li Zhongjio had a lot of elixirs on him, if he could give the students elixirs that corresponded to their attributes, it would be better if he could give them elixirs that corresponded to their attributes. After consuming them, the effects would be better. It took him 2 days to refine the elixirs. After all, there were many types of elixirs. In addition, the preparation of the herbs naturally required time. In the following half a month's time, among this batch of students, even the weakest one had broken through to the peak of the origin ancestor realm. In just half a month, they had broken through several realms consecutively. It was simply shocking. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Zhou Zheng had a dumbfounded look on his face. There were many students in this batch who had been trained by him. However, he hadn't expected that Li Zhongjio would make such a huge breakthrough so quickly. It was the same batch of students, but different mentors had different effects. Sometimes talent was important. However, most of the time, one's talent wasn't at its peak. If one was able to fully utilize what little talent one had, it would create a very shocking effect. Therefore, when one wasn't as good as others, one shouldn't blame one's talent. It was because one wasn't hardworking enough that such a situation would occur. The most outstanding ones were Xia Shui, and the other 2. It was also in this trial that he had forced out all his potential. Just this ferocious energy alone was enough to make people unable to believe it. Often, the more talented a person was, the more hardworking he or she would be. The cultivation of the 3 of them had also broken through to the origin monarch realm. Furthermore, Xia Shui's own cultivation had also broken through to the 5th grade origin monarch realm. When Xia Shui woke up, she couldn't believe her eyes. She had broken through after sleeping for a while. Furthermore, it was such a huge breakthrough. She thought that she was still in a dream. Luo Fugui and Wang Jian had also broken through to the 3rd grade origin monarch realm. Fortunately, Xia Shui was slightly ahead of the 2 of them. Even the people of the Imperial Martial Pavilion had to give way when they saw this. However, Li Zhongjio had also sent a letter back while he was in Binhai City. He had asked the people of the White Deer Mansion to investigate the people in the Azure Ocean Academy. This was because there were people from the Devouring Yuan clan hidden in the Azure Ocean Academy. These people had to be dealt with. Otherwise, Li Zhongjio wouldn't be able to sleep. He wouldn't be able to sleep comfortably either. When he was free, Li Zhongjio continued to attempt the trial in the Evil Dragon Eye. Thinking about how Li Zongjio had been repeatedly thwarted by the evil dragon's eye, he naturally couldn't let these students have a good time. Very quickly, after these people broke through, Li Zongjio continued to assign tasks to them. This time, Li Zongjio didn't accompany these people to the Golden Island. Li Zongjio's request was still the same. He wanted them to harvest the heads of the abyssal race on the Golden Island. However, the only difference was that they couldn't take a boat. They could only swim across the river like this. It didn't matter if they flew or floated on the water. They didn't have the chance to take a boat. They had to rely on their own strength to cross over 1,000 miles of sea and reach the Golden Island. During this time, Li Zongjio also found out that there was a mineral vein hidden on the Golden Island. This mineral vein was the favorite of the abyssal race. If they devoured it, they would evolve. They would become the king of the abyssal race. They were called the Abyssal Kings. Now an abyssal king had been born. However, this abyssal king was being held back by Long Ji. Li Zongjio wasn't worried. A little chaos and crisis on the continent was the real long-term solution. If they were too free and didn't have to worry about food and clothing, it would be easy for internal strife to occur. Even these people themselves would become more numb. They would just wait for a tall person to appear and block the things that fell from the sky. They had to cultivate their own battle awareness. Today, a group of students landed on the Golden Island. However, Li Zongjio, who was in the middle of cultivation, suddenly opened his eyes. This was because there was an unusual movement on Golden Island. Chapter 1522. When Li Zongjio noticed the changes on Golden Island, there were already a few students on the island. After all, Golden Island was mostly under Li Zongjio's control. It was impossible for the abyssal race to break free from Golden Island. However, there were a few exceptions. At the very beginning, there was an abyssal race hiding in the depths of an vein on Golden Island. Relying on multiple barriers, they managed to avoid Li Zongjio's mental power detection. Now that the time was right, the abyssal race began to devour the core energy on Golden Island, which was the core of the vein. Now, this king of the abyss had also completed its evolution. Li Zongjio didn't look for the abyssal king carefully. Therefore, the abyssal king that was comparable to the peak of the absolute saint realm was born on Golden Island. Chu Wen and the others also formed a small team. They wanted to farm here and gain some combat experience. Moreover, the statistics of the abyssal race killed were still in effect. Therefore, they wanted to continue killing the abyssal race and go to Li Zongjio to exchange for pills. Suddenly, there was a huge commotion on Golden Island. Is Lord Evil Dominator playing some new tricks again? Could it be that we've been chosen and are going to be rewarded? After seeing Xia Shui and the others obtain so many rewards, the people who were previously scared to death were even looking forward to the next test. Since Li Zongjio had directly chosen them, then no matter how difficult it was, they had to persevere until the end. In this way, they would be able to obtain more rewards. In this way, they would have a stronger guarantee to increase their strength. Other people would cultivate bitterly for 8 to 10 years, but Yi Shiwen only needed a month. How infuriating. Something's wrong. Evil Lord is in seclusion. Chu Wen frowned. Indeed, something was wrong. If Evil Lord wanted to say something, he would have told them in advance. Although Golden Island was under the complete control of the Evil Dominator, it was inevitable that there would be some situations where he missed out on the island. What he had accumulated over the past few days allowed him to have a very accurate sense of the crisis that was about to befall him. Immediately, Chu Wen hurriedly gathered everyone. Boom! Soon, the seal on the Golden Island was broken by a powerful force. Following that, countless powerful abyssal tribe members also erupted in cheers. In the past few days, these powerful abyssal race were completely sealed in place by a mysterious existence. The mysterious existence didn't even kill them. Instead, it kept teasing them. This was a great humiliation to the abyssal tribe powerhouses. The low-level abyssal race members might only be good at attacking and attacking endlessly. However, the high-level abyssal race members basically had intelligence of their own. They even had emotions. It was just that humans couldn't understand these emotions. However, the abyssal race members communicated with each other in this way. Finally, the abyssal race members were angry. They were finally free. Now that they were led by the Abyss King, they would definitely be able to wipe out these humans and return all the humiliation that the humans had inflicted on them. A large number of abyssal race members spread out from the mine. Retreat! Release the signal. Chu Wen immediately realized that this wasn't a test assigned by Li Zongjio. It was obvious that Li Zongjio's seal had disappeared. She didn't expect that evil lord would make a mistake. However, if he did, the problem would be very serious. Now the latter had made a mistake. Where would we get the signal flare? Even if we did, we wouldn't be able to see it. The students below also started to panic. Don't panic, Chu Wen said. At the same time, she led everyone to a favorable place to set up a defense line. This place was also very close to the sea. However, they couldn't go into the sea. Otherwise, the abyssal race's strength would increase greatly. It was very difficult to defeat them in the water. These days, there were many abyssal race members in the water. Although there were few of them, they had already eaten up the surrounding sea. Moreover, these abyssal race members often sneak attacked Banhai City. Obviously, they didn't have any intelligence. In front of such a powerful navy, these abyssal race members were basically no different from courting death. Oh my god, that's the real deal. Chu Wen and the others gathered together and looked at the golden island in front of them. It had completely awakened and become a real abyssal island. Boom! It was overwhelming, and the mountains and rivers shook. These abyssal race members were all above the primitive emperor realm. There were even hundreds of supremes among them. Even a breath from the other party was enough to extinguish them. Now that they were facing a true death situation, they couldn't resist at all. They could only fight to the death. However, just as Chu Wen and the others were about to fight to the death, an extremely terrifying force suddenly appeared in front of them. Boom! What followed was an invisible, transparent wall. The moment this transparent wall appeared, the abyssal race members that swooped down were all shattered after getting close. It was as if their bodies had turned into glass and ceramics, and were directly smashed by someone. It was so simple and direct. One after another, group after group. It didn't even matter if they were strong or weak. It didn't matter how strong or weak you were. All of them ended up in an orderly manner. They were easily crushed and turned into countless pieces. Whoosh! Outside the transparent barrier, these abyssal race members were constantly losing their lives. As for the ground where Chu Wen and the others were standing, not even a single blade of grass shook. Seeing such a shocking scene, Chu Wen and the others immediately realized that this must be Li Zongjio's move. Evil Lord Senior had made a move. You guys are really unlucky. Li Zongjio stood with his hands behind his back and appeared behind Chu Wen and the others. Immediately, Chu Wen also turned her head around. When she saw Li Zongjio in front of her, she was incomparably pleasantly surprised. However, when she heard Li Zongjio's words, her expression changed one by one. She even directly rolled her eyes at Li Zongjio. Isn't this all your fault? How can you blame us for not being lucky enough? Isn't this all because you didn't control these abyssal race members well? No need to thank me. After Li Zongjio finished speaking, he waved his hand. Immediately, this transparent energy barrier moved in the direction of these abyssal race members. The process of moving was like a cutting machine of the abyssal race. All the abyssal race members were turned into pieces after touching this transparent barrier. Not a single one was left alive. It was completely cleaned up. After Li Zongjio cleaned up the entire Golden Island, from the bottom of the Golden Island, a powerful wave of energy came. The main character is here. How dare you embarrass me? Let me see what you've got. Li Zongjio sneered. Chapter 1523. It was the Abyss King. He had finally evolved into the Abyss King, and just as he was about to lead the Abyss clan to a new height, he encountered Li Zongjio. Just a move. That was to kill all the abyssal tribe members on Golden Island. When the Abyss King saw this, he was so angry that he almost died on the spot. Therefore the Abyss King burst out. The entire Golden Island seemed to be under his control. A terrifying power burst out from the Abyss King's body. The Abyss King looked like a giant octopus, but it was obviously not an octopus, but 100-tentacled fish. When the Abyss King's claws occupied the Golden Mountain, the energy of the mineral veins under the Golden Mountain was being absorbed by the Abyss King. Boom! One of the Abyss King's claws grabbed a mountain and threw it at Li Zhongjiu and the others. It was as if the mountain, which was nearly 100 meters tall, was just a pebble in the Abyss King's hand. It was as easy as pie. Go! Li Zhongjiu pushed with his finger. The unparalleled sword appeared and slashed the mountain into pieces. Instantly, the sky was filled with shattered stones. Li Zhongjiu raised one hand, and the shattered stones were cut into cones by an invisible force. They were like stone nails. With a wave of his hand, the stone cones flew toward the Abyss King. Swoosh! Swoosh! The stone cones directly shattered one of the Abyss King's tentacles. There were no other Abyss clan members on the Golden Island. Li Zhongjiu leaped and took the initiative to attack the Abyss King. Chu Wen and the others widened their eyes as they watched the battle. It could be said to be an unparalleled battle. It was not always possible to see Li Zhongjiu in action. Even the Abyss King who appeared now was almost as strong as Li Zhongjiu. My God, I guess other than Evil Lord, no one in the world can take this thing. A disciple beside Chu Wen said. They didn't know how strong Li Zhongjiu was, but the King of the Abyss in front of them was able to tear down a peak of the Golden Mountain. Such power was already comparable to that of a god or demon. Who could stop him? Li Zhongjiu held the unparalleled sword in his hand. Flaming sword chi followed the long sword and swept forward. It was enough to form an area of 300 meters. At the same time, heat waves surged. The sword chi seemed slow, but it was unavoidable. The King of the Abyss was also using the power of the Abyss to defend himself. Most of his body was submerged in the seawater, and as he shook, the seawater turned into a long dragon that blasted towards Li Zhongjiu. Li Zhongjiu swung his palm backward. The domineering palm force seemed to be able to split the heavens and earth apart, as it sent tens of millions of tons of seawater flying. At the same time, almost every drop of the shattered seawater turned into a water needle. Suddenly, more than tens of millions of water needles were thrown towards the King of the Abyss in front of him. The King of the Abyss also waved his tentacles to defend himself. However, they were easily pierced through by the water needles that were flying over. Chu Wen and the others were looking at Li Zhongjiu's exquisite control. Clearly, his control over his own yuan power had already reached the level of the fine hair level. The ultimate level of detail. When will I be able to have such control? Chu Wen was also amazed in her heart. Li Zhongjiu's usage of yuan power had allowed them to see the ingenuity of using yuan power. It was much more effective than using all of his yuan power to blast it out. Even yuan power could be controlled to such an extent. How many people in the world could do it? Li Zhongjiu felt that what he had shown was almost enough. It was time to kill the King of the Abyss. Previously, Li Zhongjiu was deliberately showing off his skills to let these naive young people know that cultivation was endless. They had to constantly seek the limit, break through, and seek the limit again. The King of the Abyss was the King of the Abyss clan. To be able to evolve to such a level, it was not easy to kill him. Immediately, the latter grabbed the entire Golden Island and lifted it up. His body fell into the sea, but the Golden Island was like a hammer, smashing towards Li Zhongjiu. The King of the Abyss wrapped around the Golden Island. The King of the Abyss kept the Golden Island in a complete state, and it would not be easily destroyed. Li Zhongjiu waved his hand and threw Chu Wen and the others into the sea dozens of miles away. Lord Evil Lord won't be smashed to death, right? When Chu Wen and the others saw Li Zhongjiu, it was too late to dodge. After all, the entire Golden Island was covered by the King of the Abyss. If Li Zhongjiu did not act quickly and sent them out in advance, they would have been smashed to pieces by the King of the Abyss. Boom! The entire Golden Island exploded in an instant. 100-meter-high wave was set off on the sea surface. It even threw Chu Wen and the others into the sky. However, in the midst of the King of the Abyss, a figure filled with flames emerged. The latter was still in a punching position. Suddenly, Li Zhongjiu turned his head and looked at Chu Wen and the others. His figure flashed. He appeared next to Chu Wen and the others. He caught a few tentacles that reached out from the sea and burned them to ashes. However, at this moment, the King of the Abyss, who should have been killed by Li Zhongjiu, quickly escaped. In the sea, the King of the Abyss's speed was really fast. Are you all okay? Li Zhongjiu glanced at them. It's all because you guys are useless. You don't even have the ability to protect yourselves. Look, the King of the Abyss escaped. Chu Wen and the others opened their eyes wide. My brother, even if you want to find an excuse, you're too casual. You're the one who asked us to stay on the island to watch your performance. You're the one who wanted to show off your skills. Now that he ran away, you're blaming us. However, Chu Wen and the others adjusted their mentality. After all, you're the one who has the final say. Anyway, no one here can beat you, so you can say whatever you want. Who asked you to be so strong? You guys swim back by yourselves. I'll go after that guy. Don't let him escape. Li Zhongjiu said and threw them into the sea again. They fell into the water with a few splashes. Then Li Zhongjiu's figure instantly disappeared. Boom! Looking at Li Zhongjiu's figure disappearing, Chu Wen and the others clearly felt that Li Zhongjiu was bullying them. He was an expert who stood at the peak of the continent, but he still played such a trick. Too cruel. Chapter 1524. The King of the Abyss dived into the deep sea and disappeared. Even Li Zhongjiu couldn't find him. However, the King of the Abyss was too arrogant. Li Zhongjiu couldn't let him escape. Even if he hid in the depths of the sea, in the endless sea domain, Li Zhongjiu also wanted to find this guy. With a splash, Li Zhongjiu's figure submerged into the sea water. He moved at high speed in the deep sea. Boom! The sea water couldn't slow down Li Zhongjiu's speed. The King of the Abyss was faster than Li Zhongjiu in the water. However, Li Zhongjiu had already left a mark on the King of the Abyss. At the same time, Li Zhongjiu realized that the King of the Abyss seemed to be luring him over. You want to play with me? You want to play with me? Li Zhongjiu smiled disdainfully. Li Zhongjiu had never been afraid of anything. Why would he care about the King of the Abyss? Li Zhongjiu was now hundreds of thousands of miles away from the continent. The endless sea domain was really endless. It was even bigger than the Holy Martial Continent and the Holy Martial Realm combined. Suddenly, a pitch-black sea appeared in front of him. The Black Sea Domain. In history, most of the records about the endless ocean were about the Black Sea. In the Black Sea Domain, there was nothing but the aura of death. Moreover, it was easy to get lost here. If you lost your will to fight, you would die here. It wasn't an exaggeration at all. After all, the aura of death in the Black Sea Domain was enough to kill a supreme being if he breathed it in for 3 minutes. Then, his body would become the nourishment of the Black Sea Domain. There was nothing in the Black Sea Domain. It was called nothingness. At least in the Holy Martial Continent, no one had found out what was special about it. The only special thing was that it was easy to die here. If you were careless, you would be devoured by the Black Sea Domain. Not even your body could be found. This place is not bad. When Li Zhongjiu rushed into the Black Sea area, he was shocked. Immediately, he felt the terrifying power that existed in the Black Sea region. It had a very strong destructive power. Even with the strength of Li Zhongjiu's body, if he continued to stay here, it would take less than a month for him to melt and become a part of the Black Sea. Boom! Just as Li Zhongjiu was feeling the power of the Black Sea region, suddenly, a figure appeared in front of him. Boom! The Abyss King. However, Li Zhongjiu took a closer look and found that it wasn't the King of the Abyss that he had been chasing. Obviously, the Abyssal tribe was quite good at seizing opportunities. Unknowingly, they had already cultivated such a powerful Abyssal King. They even knew how to hide. He jumped out at this time to kill Li Zhongjiu. One rose to the surface, then the second one, and the third one. The fourth one. The fourth one was the King of the Abyss that Li Zhongjiu had been chasing. The latter had summoned a total of 3 kings of the Abyss. Including himself, there were a total of 4 kings of the Abyss. At the same time, they besieged Li Zhongjiu. If you want to besiege me, I'm afraid that just the 4 of you are not enough. Li Zhongjiu shook his head in disdain, and the 4 kings of the abyss started to attack. An extremely strong wave was set off on the spot. Immediately, 4 water tornadoes were formed around Li Zhongjiu, and they rolled toward him. The deadly waterspouts formed by the dark sea. It was believed that anyone who was swept by this kind of seawater would be directly swallowed up. Black Dragon Hammer. Li Zhongjiu directly summoned the Black Dragon Hammer in his hand, and then fiercely swung it at the kings of the abyss. Boom! The 4 huge waterspouts were suddenly shattered. Whoosh! Li Zhongjiu rushed towards one of the kings of the abyss, and the latter's thousands of tentacles were also flying in the air. At this moment, Li Zhongjiu seemed to be deep in the trial of the evil dragon eye, but the king of the abyss was too slow. It was far slower than the speed of the Hydra in the trial world of the evil dragon eye. Although the Hydra only had 9 heads, its intertwining speed was tens of thousands of times faster than these kings of the abyss. So Li Zhongjiu easily dodged the attack of the king of the abyss. At the same time, the unparalleled sword also rotated around his body, finding the weak point of the opponent's defense, and easily cut it into pieces. Bang! 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 With Li Zhongjiu's full power, Li Zhongjiu also easily cut the tentacles of the king of the abyss in front of him into pieces, and all of them fell directly to the ground. The king of the abyss also roared in pain. Everyone, no matter what race, knows pain. It's just that some of them are relatively weak, but it's not that they are completely different. It's just that the degree of pain is not enough. Now Li Zhongjiu cut it into this state. The king of the abyss in front of him could only scream in pain. Raising the hammer in his hands, he suddenly smashed the head of the king of the abyss. Suddenly, the terrifying power directly exploded the body of the king of the abyss. Flesh and blood splattered all over the sky. The other kings of the abyss saw the end of this one, and they were obviously stunned for a moment. But the king of the abyss reacted quickly. He directly launched a powerful devouring power, absorbing the broken body of the king of the abyss, and integrated the latter's power into his body. And this was the one Li Zhongjiu was chasing. It seems that this king of the abyss of the Golden Island was smarter than the others. Otherwise, it wouldn't have done such a thing. The remaining 2 unfamiliar kings of the abyss also became irritable at this moment. But Li Zhongjiu also realized that. It turned out that the Abyss clan had no fighting power other than their strong digestive ability. To Li Zhongjiu, these Abyss clan members were no threat at all. Or these guys weren't strong enough. No matter what abilities they had, Li Zhongjiu would take them all down. The other 2 kings of the abyss were also killed by Li Zhongjiu. He also wanted to see what other tricks this king of the abyss of the Golden Island had. The latter didn't really do anything. He just ate the bodies of the kings of the abyss, assimilating them into his own power. Finally, he stared at Li Zhongjiu in front of him. Suddenly a black light appeared. It suddenly erupted from the Black Sea region. It was a black light. Although it was black, Li Zhongjiu could clearly feel the energy within. It wasn't that simple. Immediately, this energy fell on the body of the king of the abyss of the Golden Island. Then the huge body of the king of the abyss. It began to condense. Its body was close to 10,000 feet. At this moment, it was shrinking rapidly. In the end, the king of the abyss kept absorbing the power of the Black Sea, condensing it into his body. It formed an extremely terrifying aura. A pair of hands broke out of the body of the king of the abyss. A slender man appeared in front of Li Zhongjiu. The power of the Black Sea was condensing into the man's body. Originally, this man only had his hands and head. Later, with the power of the Black Sea, he gradually formed the shape of a normal man. His entire body was black. I have to thank you for my breakthrough. Chapter 1525. In front of Li Zhongjiu. In fact, Li Zhongjiu had even given the latter enough time to let his body transform properly. He had not interrupted his breakthrough. So, what the hell are you? Li Zhongjiu couldn't help but ask. Could these Abyssal clan people transform into humans? But judging from the latter's inexperienced look, he shouldn't be able to transform into humans often. Finally, this person, whose body was as black as charcoal, appeared in front of Li Zhongjiu, with a perfect human face. It was truly a magnificent and incomparably exquisite sight. He looked as if he was made of gems, and was extremely dazzling. "I am the Emperor of the Abyss," said the latter. His arrogant aura also soared into the sky. Those who didn't know would probably be shocked by the latter. Just by listening to it, one could tell that he was very powerful. "Okay, are you done with your transformation?" said Li Zongjio. Just now, he killed the other 3 abyssal kings in a flash. This was not difficult for Li Zongjio. He was so powerful in the first place. Now the being in front of him, who made a temporary breakthrough, and claimed to be the Emperor of the Abyss, surprised Li Zongjio. After all, this was indeed a little shameless. The main thing was that Li Zongjio didn't know the situation of the Abyssal clan, so he would listen to what he said. "In the darkness, listen to my call." The Emperor of the Abyss was not in a hurry. Instead, he directly waved in the direction of the Black Sea. Could it be that the Emperor of the Abyss's power was actually related to the Black Sea? Li Zongjio turned his head and looked over. It seemed that there was a force rushing over from a very distant place. Boom! Immediately he saw a pitch-black sword. It streaked across the sky above the Black Sea. It was as if the Black Sea had been split into 2 halves. This dark sword flew directly and fell into the hands of the Emperor of the Abyss. "Damn, is it true?" Li Zongjio couldn't help but say. Wasn't it a little too careless for a sword to fly over with just a wave of his hand? The main thing was that this move was useless. It seemed that the other party was ready, so Li Zongjio did not hesitate, and directly waved the Black Dragon Hammer in his hand. An extremely powerful force burst out from the Black Dragon Hammer. Suddenly it blasted forward. The Black Dragon Hammer instantly erupted with a power that could destroy the heavens and earth. As for the Emperor of the Abyss, he resisted with the Sword of Darkness in his hand. Boom! The moment the sword and hammer collided, a huge wave spread out in all directions. As the huge wave continued to spread into the distance, Lin Fan's eyes lit up. The auras of the 2 clashing also spread out. It was just their first clash, yet they were able to reach a level where they were evenly matched. "Wow, you've improved." Li Zongjio was also surprised. He did not expect the latter to make such a big breakthrough. It was indeed incredible. It seemed that after eating a few of his kind, there was indeed some effect. Otherwise, he would not dare to be so arrogant in front of Li Zongjio. "That's all there is to your strength." The Emperor of the Abyss on the opposite side actually started to taunt. Then the Emperor of the Abyss also launched an attack on Li Zongjio. Boom! As the Emperor of the Abyss moved, a huge wave immediately appeared on the Black Sea. Then the huge wave fell toward Li Zongjio. The power of the Black Sea was filled with endless dark energy, which was enough to corrode and devour the origin energy of ordinary cultivators. In the blink of an eye, Li Zongjio was covered. Li Zongjio was surrounded. Boom! Li Zongjio rushed out of the huge wave. The unparalleled sword moved. Suddenly the flame energy lingered. In an instant, the surrounding Black Sea water was burned clean. Hunyuan Bell. Li Zongjio threw out the Hunyuan Bell with one hand. Immediately, the chaotic energy wrapped around the Hunyuan Bell and blasted forward. The Emperor of the Abyss pointed his sword, but he underestimated the power of the Hunyuan Bell. He was directly sent flying, and the dark sword in his hand was also taken away by Li Zongjio's Hunyuan Bell. The Emperor of the Abyss seemed to have realized that something was wrong. Immediately, his figure flashed, and he rushed toward the depths of the Black Sea, trying to escape. With Li Zongjio's temper, he would not let him go just like that. "I've already let you run away once. If you do it again, you won't have the chance to do it again." Boom! Li Zongjio and the Emperor of the Abyss were chasing each other in the sky above the Black Sea. The Emperor of the Abyss was actually able to use the power of the Black Sea to increase his speed. Li Zongjio also went all out, but he could not catch up with the Emperor of the Abyss. Immediately he used his own will. On the surface of the sea in front, a wall of Black Sea gradually rose. This was summoned by Li Zongjio's will. The Emperor of the Abyss wanted to rush over directly, but he heard a boom. He crashed straight into it, setting off an extremely terrifying vibration force. At the same time, the Emperor of the Abyss was also a little stunned by the impact. The Emperor of the Abyss stopped. and his head was about to split open, because what he crashed into just now was the power of will released by Li Zongjio. With Li Zongjio's innate level 2 power of will, how could he not withstand it? How fast the Emperor of the Abyss was just now was how badly he crashed. Li Zongjio's figure also stopped. Why did you stop running? Weren't you having fun running? The corner of Li Zongjio's mouth lifted slightly, and just as Li Zongjio was about to finish off the Emperor of the Abyss, there seemed to be a strange power emerging from the surrounding Black Sea. Not far in front of Li Zongjio, on the surface of the Black Sea, it directly condensed into a whirlpool. From all directions, there was even an endless amount of dark power that quickly gathered in this whirlpool. Even Li Zongjio couldn't help but stop in the face of such a powerful aura. He even maintained a trace of vigilance. Who is it? In front of this powerful whirlpool, Li Zongjio was like an ant in front of an elephant. A strong enemy had appeared. Even the evil dragon god from before was not worth mentioning in front of this power. Li Zongjio glanced at the Emperor of the Abyss. How could this strange thing come up with so many tricks? Obviously it was impossible. After all, the power of both sides was not the same. Therefore, for such a situation to occur, there must be a new expert. Above the whirlpool of black water, a figure slowly condensed under the gathering of the black water. It was a slender woman, and the robe on her body was formed by the black water. I am the Lord of Black Water. Who are you? The woman's long hair seemed to have merged with the black water. Then, she opened her eyes, and a pair of black gem-like eyes looked at Li Zongjio in front of her. Chapter 1526. Black Sea Overlord. Li Zongjio looked at the person in front of him curiously. Although he was curious, even Li Zongjio did not dare to act rashly. The mysterious person in front of him was too powerful. He could feel a threat from him even from afar. His strength was far above him. How was this possible? Li Zongjio was currently at the peak of the human race. Whether it was in the Holy Martial Continent or the Holy Martial Realm, no one was a match for him. He could be said to be invincible in the world. As for the Abyss race, even the Emperor of the Abyss was chased by Li Zongjio, and it was only a matter of time before Li Zongjio killed the Emperor of the Abyss. However, where did the Black Sea Overlord come from? Could it be that this person was cultivating above the Black Sea? Was that why he called himself the Black Sea Overlord? Human race. The Black Sea Overlord glanced at Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio nodded subconsciously. For a human to be at your level, you're not weak. However, you're still far from the Celestial Realm. Celestial Realm? When Li Zongjio heard this term, he instantly felt that the obstacles blocking his path of cultivation had been punched hard. Although a new path had yet to appear, at least a crack had been created in the fixed power. As long as a crack appeared, many things would be much more convenient in the future. However, the Black Sea Overlord did not continue to communicate with Li Zongjio. Abyss race. The Black Sea Overlord looked at the man. Surprisingly, the Abyss Emperor couldn't help but nod in agreement. Obviously, this was the will of the Black Sea Overlord. Even the latter could not resist it. Originally, even Li Zongjio could not resist it, let alone the Abyss Emperor. The Abyss race should not be here. Go back. The Black Sea Overlord drew a line in the air with one hand. Then, a crack appeared behind the Emperor of the Abyss. The aura of the Abyssal clan came out of the rift. That Lord of the Black Sea actually tore through space with a single hand and directly found the Abyss realm. A powerful suction force sucked the Emperor of the Abyss in. In fact, Li Zongjio could clearly see the extreme shock in the eyes of the Emperor of the Abyss. He had finally managed to escape from the Abyss realm. But now, he was sent back by this woman in the blink of an eye. I will definitely come back. The Emperor of the Abyss was thrown back. The crack disappeared. The space returned to normal. Only the Black Sea Overlord and Li Zongjio were left on the calm Black Sea. You're not a guardian of the human race? You don't have the smell of the heavenly book. The Black Sea Overlord glanced at Li Zongjio in astonishment. Li Zongjio nodded. I'm not. The real guardians had yet to appear. Although Li Zongjio had comprehended the human vein heavenly book, he hadn't accepted the identity of a guardian. Your current strength is still lacking. It's not impossible for you to break through with your own talent. Come and find me after you break through to the heaven realm. With that said, the Black Sea Overlord waved his hand at Li Zongjio. He sent Li Zongjio to the sky above Binhai City. He really returned to where he came from. Even Li Zongjio was stunned. Where did this person come from? She actually had such powerful strength. At that moment, Li Zongjio was also in a daze. He couldn't believe his eyes. This was the second time Li Zongjio had such a shocked expression. The first time was when he had just been reborn. He didn't expect such a thing to happen. However, it was an even more shocking moment now. The Black Sea Overlord was already unbelievably powerful. Following the latter's actions, he sent Li Zongjio here. At the same time, a piece of information appeared in his mind. This is. When Li Zongjio sensed the content of the information, he was completely shocked. This is the later cultivation realm. Li Zongjio only took a glance. He immediately felt that the cultivation realm was so vast and endless. At the same time, he could feel the strength of the Black Sea Overlord. At least a little. The Black Sea Overlord was an existence that could easily travel through space. For example, the Abyss Realm was easily opened by the latter, and the Abyss Emperor was thrown back. This meant that if the Black Sea Overlord wanted to go to the Abyss Realm, it would only take a second to settle it. However, it was impossible for the Abyss race and the like to have the strength to break through space. Otherwise, they would have killed their way to the Shengwu continent long ago. Why would they wait for such a long time? Even Li Zongjio thought about it. Back then when he faced the experts of the ape race, he didn't know if he could be a match for them. In comparison, the experts of the ape race didn't seem to have such strength. Otherwise, the ape race would have torn through space and come here directly. Needless to say, the fallen race, they weren't a match for them at all. One must know that the fallen race had put in so much effort and still couldn't transfer the beast god temple over. In the end, they were so miserable that they were wiped out. Postnatal Khanate Heavenly Man. After Li Zongjio finished comprehending the information transmitted by the Black Sea Overlord, Li Zongjio was extremely shocked. At the same time, he understood the information within. There was a detailed division of cultivation realms. The Black Sea Overlord said that I'll look for her after I cultivate to the Heavenly Man realm. That means her strength is either at the celestial realm, or even higher than that. The so-called postnatal realm. It meant that one would cultivate from the beginning, as a Yuan Qi scholar to the Absolute Saint realm. When one broke through to the Absolute Saint realm, it was equivalent to stepping into the Khanate realm. For example, Li Zongjio had already stepped into the Khanate level 2. However, there were a total of 9 realms in the Khanate realm. In other words, Li Zongjio had to cultivate to the Khanate level 9 before breaking through. Only then would he be a heavenly man. There were also 9 realms in the Heavenly Man realm. As for elemental energy, in fact all the cultivation methods were wrong. Elemental energy was never the main point of cultivation. The most important thing was willpower. The stronger one's willpower was, the more powerful the elemental energy one could mobilize. However, this principle could only be comprehended when a cultivator had truly stepped into the Khanate realm, or even the Heavenly Man realm. What kind of feeling would it be when you realized that you had walked the wrong path after walking so far? Fortunately, although it was wrong, it wasn't too wrong. Moreover, there were benefits to taking the initiative to cultivate elemental energy. At least when there was no elemental energy around, one could still have elemental energy. It's really amazing. Li Zongjio carefully experienced it. He also felt that he had been completely subverted. It turned out that the cultivation of elemental energy had always been unnecessary. However, for many ordinary people, it was already very impressive to be able to cultivate elemental energy to the peak. Therefore, there was no need to subvert the entire cultivation system. However, if you wanted to break free from it, you had to have absolute strength. You had to accept all of this quickly. When ordinary people found out about all of this, they might break down immediately. However, Li Zongjio quickly calmed down. After all, this was something that Li Zongjio had already expected. In fact, when he was tempering his willpower, Li Zongjio had already noticed it. Now he had just verified it. I flew for more than half a day just to chase after that guy. But this Black Sea Overlord sent me back immediately. It was faster than the teleportation array. Chapter 1527. For a mysterious existence like Black Sea Overlord. Other than being secretly shocked, Li Zhongjiu didn't have any other thoughts. However, it could be seen from this point. Back then, even if Li Zhongjiu didn't attack the fallen race, the fallen race might not have been able to occupy the sacred martial realm. Although the most powerful person in the sacred martial realm was Heavenly Sage Kuan-Peng, he could be considered half a guardian of the human race. However, in reality, this was only the strength on the surface. There were even more powerful existences hidden in the dark. An existence with such a cultivation level. Even at Li Zhongjiu's level, it was difficult to find him. As long as the other party didn't appear voluntarily. If Black Sea Overlord hadn't taken the initiative to appear, even if Li Zhongjiu searched the entire Black Sea, he wouldn't be able to find him. The difference in realm was too great. It was just like how ordinary people wanted to find a supremacy expert. They weren't in the same realm, so how could they find him? It was extremely surprising. Therefore, Li Zhongjiu understood. He was basically worrying for nothing. To have such time and opportunity, he might as well seize the time to cultivate. For the human race to exist for so long, and write the human vein heavenly book, it was obviously not that simple. Otherwise, just look at how many races wanted to destroy the human race and occupy the human race's providence. But they had never succeeded. Right now, Li Zhongjiu had already made up his mind to cultivate properly in order to raise his strength and realm. What will the world become like after the heaven realm? I'm looking forward to it. Li Zhongjiu's eyes flickered. Li Zhongjiu happened to land outside Binhai City. Even Binhai City heard the commotion on Golden Island. Therefore, they quickly sent out a reconnaissance team. Although Li Zhongjiu was overseeing Binhai City, the ones who had to shoulder the main responsibility of protection were the Binhai Navy. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a waste to spend so much money to support these troops? Then Chu Wen and the others also rushed back. Everything that they had experienced before was like a dream to Chu Wen and the others. Such a perfect training island was destroyed in the blink of an eye. Then evil Lord Li Zhongjiu had a great battle with the other side. It was an earth-shattering battle. In the end, he even let them run away. When Chu Wen and the others told him about what happened on Golden Island, Zhou Zheng and the rest were also in disbelief. She couldn't believe her ears. Soon Zhang Hengliang's scouting fleet returned. Golden Island was indeed destroyed. It was such a big island. What kind of power was needed to destroy the Golden Island? It wasn't an exaggeration to say that Golden Island was larger than 5 Binhai cities combined. Otherwise, Golden Island wouldn't be so far away. The Shengyan dynasty had to spend a lot of effort to control it. After all, this island was basically full of mines. If he dug them all out, he wouldn't dare to believe it. Even if the entire Binhai Navy was mobilized and bombarded for a month, they might not be able to destroy Golden Island. In just a few minutes, Li Zhongjiu managed to turn the entire Golden Island into such a state. The power of a godfiend. Zhang Hengliang immediately looked up and sighed. He didn't expect Li Zhongjiu's strength to be so terrifying. The legendary evil lord. No wonder he was able to rely on his own strength to cause the 3 great dynasties to be extremely fearful. The entire underworld had even become the Li family's world. Everything had to be done according to the Li family's wishes. Originally, Zhang Hengliang didn't think that the Li family was anything impressive. So what if they were powerful? He had 800,000 navy troops in Binhai City. How could he be afraid of them? But now he really knew how powerful they were. With Li Zhongjiu's strength, destroying Binhai City was basically a matter of yawning. When Li Zhongjiu returned, he didn't stay any longer. It was a good opportunity for Zhou Zheng to gather all the disciples. They could set off and return. The training was over. Golden Island could have allowed them to train more. In addition, Li Zhongjiu could use this opportunity to relax. However, after seeing such a powerful existence like the Black Sea Overlord, he was shocked. Li Zhongjiu also understood that he was still far from being strong. Therefore, he had to increase his strength as quickly as possible. Qi Yinran's condition improved very quickly. She should recover in a few days. It was a good opportunity to make a trip to the Qi family. It had been a long time since he saw Qi Shaohan. After all, he was Li Zongjio's father-in-law. Shall we set off now? Zhou Zheng asked after gathering everyone. That's right. Imperial tutor. Why don't you stay for a few more days? There are still many unique places in Binhai City. When Zhang Hengliang knew that Li Zongjio was leaving, he hurriedly brought Zhang Ying over. This was his last chance, yet he was in such a hurry to leave. Could it be that he had not been a good host? It's nothing. The matter on Golden Island has been resolved. I won't waste any more time here. By the way, Commander Zhang, is your subordinate, General Zhang Ying, willing to teach at my Heavenly Sect Academy? Li Zongjio asked. Zhang Ying was stunned when he heard Li Zongjio's words. He stood at the side and didn't know what to do. He actually wanted him to go. This made Zhang Ying feel flattered. Ah, Zhang Ying, teach? Zhang Hengliang thought that he had heard wrongly. There was actually such a good thing. It was simply unbelievable to Zhang Hengliang. Was this happiness coming too suddenly? This was something he had always dreamed of. As long as Zhang Ying could stay in the Heavenly Sect Academy, he would have more time and opportunities to come into contact with Li Zongjio. Moreover, in the Heavenly Sect Academy, his future would obviously be better. It was obvious just by looking at the treatment of the disciples in front of him. They would often throw some pills at their faces. If it were anyone else, they would be envious. There are 3 8th-grade pills in this porcelain bottle. Take it as your compensation. Li Zongjio looked at Zhang Ying and thought that he was unwilling, so he took out the porcelain bottle. Zhang Hengliang subconsciously took it, although his rationality told him not to take it and not to ruin his image in front of Li Zongjio. But in the end, his body was very honest and directly took it. Sir Imperial Tutor, you can't do this. Keep it. I'll get someone to send General Zhang's letter of appointment. General Zhang Jiang, please? I'll pack. No need to pack. You can buy anything in the Monarch City. Go quickly. Don't waste Imperial Tutor's time. If there's anything important, write me a letter and I'll send it to you. Go quickly. Hee, Sir Imperial Tutor, I'll leave my daughter to you. Zhang Hengliang also had an inexplicable smile, then looked at Zhang Ying in front of him. Little Ying, whether the family can prosper or not depends on you. Of course, these words were said in a very low voice. After Zhang Ying heard it, he rolled his eyes. How could there be such a father who insisted on pushing his own daughter away? This matter came too suddenly. But Zhang Ying was also a soldier, and this kind of sudden emergency situation was common. Zhou Zheng also brought a simple airship. Since it was the Heavenly Sect Academy, it was normal for them to have 1 or 2 airships in their hands. What's more, the Heavenly Sect Academy had opened this faction before. Now the Shengyan dynasty's most advanced Eagle battleship was mainly built by the White Deer Mansion. Therefore, they had quite a lot of experience in this aspect. The airship rose to the sky. Xia Shui chatted happily with Zhang Ying. After all, the two of them knew each other before. Although she was a little surprised that Li Zongjio directly recruited Zhang Ying, at least they could now cultivate together. It was also a good thing. Chapter 1528. The airship was slowly moving in the direction of Sacred Flame Royal City. Sacred Flame Royal City had now become the White Deer Mansion, which was Li Zongjio's territory. It was quite surprising. It was the first time they had seen such a thing. Moreover, the city guards all belonged to the White Deer Mansion. Fortunately, Emperor Xingyan had moved the capital quickly, so he still had time to cultivate his own trusted aides. At the same time, Emperor Xingyan was clear in his heart. It was impossible to use this method to stop Li Zongjio. He was just not interested in the position. If he was, he would have been finished long ago. There was no need for Li Zongjio to say anything more. The students in front of him were all diligently cultivating. They did not waste a single second. If Li Zongjio wanted to break through, only the evil dragons I could give him pressure and help him break through. It seemed that the owner of the evil dragons was an existence equivalent to the celestial realm. It might even have surpassed the celestial realm. It was almost at the same level as the Black Sea Lord. After careful calculation, There were actually many experts in the celestial realm. There were celestial dragons in the dragon clan. There were also celestial realm experts in the human clan. Naturally, no one dared to stop the Tianzong Academy's airship wherever it passed. Even those who specialized in robbing in the air would immediately hide far away when they saw the Tianzong Academy's airship from afar. Moreover, the Tianzong Academy was now eliminating evil for the people everywhere. They had already killed countless of the Abyss clan. It was said that these people had directly rushed to the front lines of the battlefield. Such a dedication was naturally quite great in their eyes. With Tianzong Academy taking the lead, many other academies and academies followed suit. In fact, the other academies would have done such a thing. It was just that the Tianzong Academy beat them to it. Chaowu Pavilion, Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. It was still the right-hand man of the Shengyan dynasty. However, with the intervention of the dynasty's royal family, a royal academy was established in Heaven and Earth's sacred city. The capital invested was also very large. However, it was said that within the royal school, there were many arrogant existences. Moreover, it seemed like there were a few geniuses among them, because their backgrounds were different from the rest. Other than the Tianzong Academy, which did not dare to provoke them, they had gradually begun to look down on the Imperial Martial Pavilion and the like. After all, some of the Imperial Martial Arts Pavilion's resources had been taken away after the Imperial Martial Arts Academy's support was transferred to the Imperial Martial Arts Academy. He probably couldn't hold on much longer. Currently, the Sky Sect Academy was also discussing the matter of merging into the Imperial Martial Academy. Although in the eyes of others, this was something impossible. However, the Tianzong Academy's headmaster was confident. This woman called Lan Yuyan was indeed not simple. To be able to do such a thing and make such a promise. However, it seemed that this project had been delayed a little recently. After all, there was some resistance. The airship streaked across the sky. After spending a total of 5 days, they finally returned to the sky above Sacred Flame Royal City. As for Zhang Ying's arrangements, Li Zhongjiu had also instructed Zhou Zheng to inform Lan Yuyan. Such a small matter did not require Li Zhongjiu to personally handle it. The rest of the people also returned to the Tianzong Academy. Li Zhongjiu returned to the White Deer Mansion. Although the Tianzong Academy had lost a few disciples this time, it was not a big deal. Lan Yuyan also quickly arranged for the compensation to be sent to these people to shut their mouths, so as to prevent them from spouting nonsense. Li Zhongjiu returned to the White Deer Mansion and did not do anything else. He first went into seclusion for 3 days. After 3 days, Li Zhongjiu clearly felt that he seemed to have made a small breakthrough. It should be that after seeing the Black Sea Overlord, his body was also touched. Only then did he let go of this tight realm a little. However, in the world of the evil dragon's eye, there was no breakthrough. Now the 9-headed snake only had 8 heads left. However, the speed and pressure were tens, or even hundreds of times higher than before. Li Zhongjiu had no choice but to break free from it. He continued to cultivate according to this method. It was simply a masochistic behavior. Ordinary people would not be able to tolerate it. After 3 days, Li Zhongjiu also came out of seclusion to rest. At the same time, Xiao Zhao also came to report. Basically, all the people of the Devouring Yuan clan in the Azure Sea Academy had been found. It was not difficult to trace the identity of these people, even if the master of the Azure Sea Academy had done a lot of work before. In the human race's society, there would always be many clues left behind. With Xiao Zhao's ability, it was naturally very difficult to dig them out. If we directly kill them, it will definitely cause some unnecessary trouble and influence. I suggest that we organize a trial, and then kill them one by one during the trial, Xiao Zhao said. Then, he carefully explained his plan to the others. Of course, they could not kill everyone at once. That would also attract attention. Although the White Deer Mansion did not care, and even used a lot of power to suppress it, it was more obvious that it would be more troublesome. But in that case, it was obviously more troublesome. Some secret arrangements would be made here, and naturally, the matter would be settled without anyone knowing. Multi-pronged approach. Okay, we'll do as you say. Li Zongjie said. Yes, young master. Oh right, young master, there's news from Miss Longji. The situation is under control. But Miss Longji can't get away for the time being. Recently, Dean Lan Yian wants to merge the Imperial Martial Academy into the Sky Sect Academy. Can we merge the Imperial Martial Academy into the Sky Sect Academy? Li Zongjie was surprised after hearing this. This idea was very bold. As expected of Kuan Arashi's sister, she had such great courage. Then go ahead and do it. Is there a problem? Li Zongjie asked. Of course there isn't a big problem. This is an inevitable trend. It's just that the Imperial Martial Academy's Inner Elders Guild is obstructing us. Imperial Martial Academy's Inner Elders Guild. It was Li Zongjie's first time hearing this. Where did this come from? They are all retired instructors of the Imperial Martial Academy, but because they are very experienced, they have a lot of status and influence. It means that these old farts are looking for trouble. Li Zongjie understood. These people all had old-school thinking, which was why such a thing happened. This group of people had prestige and status, so it was impossible to use force. Otherwise, it would affect the reputation that the Sky Sect Academy had built up. At the same time, there would be some hidden dangers with the Imperial Martial Academy, which was about to merge into the Imperial Martial Academy. When that time came, it would not be so smooth. Therefore, he needed to use another method to get them to agree. They were all pedantic and stubborn people who didn't have much ability. Li Zongjie could easily deal with them. If it were other people, they might have a lot of scruples. However, after meeting Li Zongjie, the situation was no longer up to them. Inform them that I want to have a meeting with them tomorrow night. You can decide the location. Li Zongjie said. There were always some people who thought they were infallible. So Li Zongjie needed to come out and kill their spirit. Li Zongjie came at the right time. Xiao Zhao quickly agreed. Then I'll go to the Spring Flower in Autumn Moon Tower. The Spring Flower in Autumn Moon Tower. It was also Zishuan Court's territory. Now, under Yun Qi's management, the Spring Flower in Autumn Moon Tower had become an elegant place. Moreover, not just anyone could enter. Only those who were recognized by Zishuan Court and were also friends of the White Deer Mansion could enter. In fact, there weren't many people with such identities. The news that Li Zongjie asked the Imperial Martial Academy's inner elders to go to the Spring Flower and Autumn Moon Tower for a meeting quickly spread throughout the city. Lan Yian also arrived early. They didn't expect Li Zongjie to be willing to come out personally to mediate this matter. Obviously, Li Zongjie attached great importance to the Sky Sect Academy. Chapter 1529. The Spring Flower and Autumn Moon. It was a famous inn in the Sacred Flame Imperial City. Anyone who could enter and leave this place was basically someone with a certain status. Even if they weren't now, they would be in the future. However, today, the Spring Flower and Autumn Moon Inn welcomed a group of white-haired old men. These old men walked with a majestic gait. Although their hair was completely white, in reality, they possessed a rather strong essence, energy and spirit. Although they were old, it didn't stop them from being in a state of high spirits. Anyone with a bit of eyesight could at least recognize one or two of them. Some of them looked familiar, but they couldn't remember where they had seen them before. Hey, isn't that the teacher of the war god from 50 years ago? Yeah, that person looks familiar too. I think he was one of the 10 war gods. 3 of them were directly taught by him. These people, aren't they the old seniors of the Imperial Martial Pavilion? Why are they suddenly gathered together today? These people had already retired and hadn't appeared for a long time. Moreover, they had never asked about the affairs of the underworld. They didn't dare to say much about the affairs of the Imperial Court. If they crossed the line even a little, it would be an act of treason. They had been silent for many years, but they were actually invited out today. Didn't you hear? Lord Evil Lord of the White Deer Mansion invited them to participate in this meeting. TSK, I really don't know what will happen. Don't tell me it's going to be a hangmen banquet? Some nosy people started to talk about it. They were all talking about it at the corners of the streets. It attracted the interest of many people. Soon, Wang Ding actually brought a large number of troops to seal off the road. They directly sealed off the road, and no one was allowed to enter or leave. Those who weren't important were all pushed aside. They were all pushed aside. Obviously, the atmosphere was very tense, and those who saw it could not help but feel a sense of panic in their hearts. Some nosy people were also chased away. A carriage slowly drove over. It was the dean of the Celestial Sect Academy, Lan Yiyan. It was said that the dean of the Celestial Sect Academy was a young woman who acted swiftly and decisively. Many important things were also done by this woman. Without her orders, many things would not have been possible. However, it was impossible for ordinary people to see Lan Yiyan's face. Now, he was finally fortunate enough to see Lan Yiyan's true appearance. Although it was just a quick glance, it made the crowd boil. Was this the legendary dean of the Celestial Sect Academy? By the time most of the people had arrived, Yi Zichen was already in a daze. An ordinary carriage slowly drove over. However, with the appearance of this ordinary carriage, the city guards at the scene became nervous. They pushed back the 200 onlookers by a large step. The roads on both sides were cleared. Such an empty area was created. Even Wang Ding personally went up to greet him, bringing along his trusted aides. He was incomparably respectful to the person who had come. It was obvious that the identity of the person in the carriage was not ordinary. Li Zhongjiu stepped out of the carriage. When he saw the street full of soldiers and so many onlookers, those who did not know would think that the emperor had come out. Why did you arrange so many people? It's a nuisance. Leave, Li Zhongjiu said. Wang Ding was shocked when he heard that. Yes, young master. Wang Ding immediately gave the order to restore order on the street. At the same time, Li Zhongjiu walked into the Spring Flower and Autumn Moon Tower. Yun Qi was already waiting at the door. When he saw Li Zhongjiu coming, he quickly went up to greet him. Young master, you haven't been here for a long time. Yun Qi said with a smile. Is everyone here? Li Zhongjiu asked. Everyone is here. However, one person refused to come. Refused to come? Li Zhongjiu frowned. He said that young master is a demon lord, and does not deserve to be on the same side as the Martial World Pavilion. Yun Qi hesitated for a moment, but finally said it out loud. Li Zhongjiu didn't like to beat around the bush. If he had something to say, it would be better for him to say it directly. Oh. When Li Zhongjiu heard this, a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He did not expect to meet such a tough guy. However, Li Zhongjiu did not come here to waste time. Wang Ding, who was waiting outside, quickly came in. Yes, young master. Bring me the head of this old man whose name I don't know. I'll give you an hour. Li Zhongjiu ordered. Li Zhongjiu was not a kind person. Talk about justice and morality? That was not talking about it. So what if you made a great contribution to the Martial World Pavilion? So what if you had a high reputation in the underworld? It had nothing to do with him. Since you refused to lower your head, I'll take your head off. Li Zhongjiu then came to the private room. The room was full of old men. Looking at the situation, Lan Yiyan had already communicated with these people before Li Zhongjiu came. However, they seemed to be very dissatisfied with the result or process of the communication. Otherwise, such a situation would not have happened. Dean Lan, how was the conversation with them? Li Zhongjiu walked to Lan Yiyan and sat down. This seat was the main seat. Lan Yiyan sat on the left, but there was an empty seat on the right. Logically speaking, this seat should be the seat of the most senior person. However, the latter had obviously given up on this seat. The masters do not want to develop for a long time. They think that joining the Sky Sect Academy is betraying their ancestors and forgetting their roots. Lan Yiyan said faintly. There was no warmth in her eyes. Looking at these old farts in front of her, she did not have a good feeling. The current pavilion master of the Martial World Pavilion had obviously agreed. However, he was obstructed by these people. That's right. The Martial World Pavilion has been established in the Shengyan dynasty for 270 years. It was founded by the retired emperor himself. How can it fall into the hands of an outsider? Li Zhongjiu, even if you are the imperial tutor, you want to get your hands on the ancestors' things. Aren't you already deceiving the emperor and offending your superiors? An old man said righteously. Bin Qianji was also full of anger. They couldn't wait to scold Li Zongjio, who was standing in front of them. This scolding had clearly ignited everyone's rebellious spirit. One after another, the entire scene became incomparably noisy. Lan Yiyan looked at Li Zongjio. She wanted to see how Li Zongjio was going to deal with this situation. After all, this situation was indeed quite tricky. There was no other way. Neither soft nor hard tactics worked. If she could use force, Lan Yiyan did not mind using force. One should know that there was still Kuan Castle behind Lan Yiyan. Now Kuan Castle was almost in a situation where they were cooperating with White Deer Mansion. Xiao Zhao naturally would not let such a good opportunity go to waste. With Li Zongjio's relationship, there were almost no difficulties or barriers when they cooperated with these top forces. Therefore, in the area of trade, there were many convenient situations that were directly developed. However, Li Zongjio drank his tea very calmly. Give me a few more plates of pastries. I see that these people are hungry. Li Zongjio said. No matter how much you shout, I will not be angry. What can you do to me? It wasn't until Li Zongjio said this that the scene quieted down a little. You are all so old. How many more years do you have left to live? Li Zongjio opened his mouth and said directly, wouldn't this offend them instantly? Dying early or dying late, isn't it the same word for death? Li Zongjio shook his head helplessly. I called you here today to tell you that if you are obedient, you don't have to die. If you are disobedient. Just as he was speaking, Wang Ding walked in from outside the room. In his hand was a cloth bag that was dripping blood. Li Zongjio gestured, and Wang Ding threw the cloth bag in his hand on the table. When he opened it, there was a human head inside, glaring angrily. It stared straight at the people present. It's the Great Elder. The Great Elder. When the people saw the human head, they were all shocked. Li Zongjio, you are rebelling. One of them pointed at Li Zongjio and roared. Seeing this, Wang Ding directly stepped forward, raised his sword and slashed. Pa! Another head rolled on the table. Clean and neat. Chapter 1530. After chopping off a head, these people had a little understanding of what silence was. Li Zongjio was simply audacious and lawless. Even Lan Yiyan was stunned. She didn't expect Li Zongjio to be so ruthless. In such a situation, it might cause a strong backlash. Moreover, it would obviously cause some bad rumors among the students in the future. It wouldn't be convenient for teaching management in the future. However, these were all things for the future. Perhaps Li Zongjio did this because he was confident that he could solve the problem. Li Zongjio sat in his original position without moving. He signaled to Yunqi behind him. Yunqi nodded, and then placed a porcelain bottle in front of each old man. In the bottle, there are 10 longevity pills. One pill can prolong your life by 10 years. Li Zongjio said lightly. Prolong your life by 10 years. 10 pills. Wouldn't that add up to 100 years? All these old men opened their eyes wide. There was actually such a good thing. How could it be possible? However, they also heard that Li Zongjio was a top alchemist. For these people who already had one foot in the coffin, they were not afraid of death. He had lived for such a long time. What had he not seen? They were not afraid of death. However, when you knew that you could continue to live for another 100 years, who would be willing to die? They were not afraid of death, because there was no other way. If you couldn't find a way to live, there was only death. Therefore, there was nothing to be afraid of. However, what you did now was a bit too much. You actually put such an opportunity to prolong your life by 100 years in front of you. For these old men, this was simply a fatal temptation and attraction. No one would be able to resist such an attractive temptation. Humph, wild ambition. What longevity pill? Maybe it's something highly poisonous. You just want to poison us to death in one breath. Swish. Wang Ding, who was behind him, directly chopped down with his saber. He directly chopped this arrogant man, who was suspected of being poisoned, into 2 halves. Everyone can see that it's not poison. Li Zongjio said. This meant that if Li Zongjio wanted to kill them, there was no need for him to poison them. Li Zongjio immediately stood up. All right, Wang Ding, you stay here and watch. Those who took the pills can leave. As for those who didn't, You can do as you see fit. Masters, I'll give you 3 minutes to discuss. After that, Li Zhongjie and Lan Yiyan also left. This combination of kindness and authority could be said to have been displayed to the extreme. No one could resist such temptation. Under such pressure, how could they not submit? It was simply a well-dug hole for them to jump into. Was there any other choice? Was there even a need to consider? If you really want to save your face, you can keep your face when the knife comes down, but your head will be gone. On the contrary, as long as everyone put down their pride, they could obtain 100 years of life. To live for another 100 years. Who wouldn't be willing? If they could live, who would want to die like this? Wang Ding looked at the so-called masters in front of him with a sneer. He gave them too much face, and really thought of himself as someone important. Lan Yiyan also wanted to stabilize the reputation of the academy, so she didn't do anything to them. Now the bad guy was Li Zhongjie. Li Zhongjie didn't care at all. Reputation was no longer useful to Li Zhongjie, and Li Zhongjie never cared about it. What use could it be? Not long after Li Zhongjie and Lan Yiyan walked out, someone couldn't sit still. He stood up and bowed to the people present, then picked up the bottle on the table, and turned to walk out. This gesture was extremely abrupt in the eyes of others, but it wasn't a big deal. This was because they would all make the same choice in the future. 100 years of life was in front of them. How could it be so easy to refuse? Immediately the group of people prepared quickly. They put away the elixirs on the table. They walked out one after another. Wang Ding looked at the people in front of him with a sneer. At least they knew what was good for them. If they didn't know what was good for them, he would directly chop them up. That was simple. These spineless people actually dared to challenge the young master. Originally, Wang Ding was prepared to kill all of them here. But it was obvious that the young master was benevolent and was willing to give them a way out. In the end, everyone took the pills and walked out of the room. This also meant that they had tacitly accepted the matter of the Imperial Martial Pavilion. This was good too. The only pity was the 3 heads lying on the table. It was these 3 heads that landed on the table. Originally, they could have lived for another 100 years. In these 100 years, who knows what kind of fortuitous encounter would allow them to break through the limit of their lifespan and achieve immortality. It wasn't impossible. How could they give up on their lives so easily? It was disrespectful to his parents to throw away his life so easily. How could they do such a thing? They must be severely criticized. They must not let their descendants learn from them. Li Zhongjie and Lan Yiyan didn't go far. It was also in the pavilion opposite that these so-called inner court elders walked out one by one, full of vigor. Their faces were flushed, as if they had picked up a great bargain. Lan Yiyan couldn't do anything about these people's faces. Did you really give them the prolongation elixirs? Lan Yiyan couldn't help but ask. First of all, the prolongation elixirs might really exist, but Li Zhongjie couldn't possibly say that he would refine these elixirs and leave them here for these people. He would refine these elixirs especially for these people. One of them is, Li Zhongjie said calmly. He was the evil lord. He never kept his word. He did whatever he wanted without fear. He was unscrupulous. These people were making things difficult for Li Zhongjie and making him waste so much time here. How could he let these people have an easy time? There's only one in each bottle? No, there's only one elixir among all the elixirs. Li Zhongjie shook his head. And this one is in my hands. As Li Zhongjie said, he also took out this elixir and showed it to them. Lan Yiyan was simply speechless by Li Zhongjie's methods. He really had a lot of strange tricks, and didn't give people a way out at all. It was impossible to take advantage of Li Zhongjie. Being able to let them live was already the greatest gift. Okay, everything here is settled. If there's anything, just call me, Li Zhongjie said. Tianzong Academy. You can do whatever you want. It must become the #1 academy. Don't worry. I will exhaust all my efforts. Lan Yiyan said firmly. Her eyes were full of hope for the future of Tianzong Academy. Just as Li Zhongjie was thinking about whether to have a meal together, there was some movement from the Green Bird platform. Li Zhongjie knew that Qi Yanran was about to recover. I'll go first. After saying that, Li Zhongjiu's figure also jumped and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Lan Yuyan had long been used to Li Zhongjiu's solitary and swift behavior. And these people of the Inner Elders Guild of Chaowu Pavilion could only blame themselves for being too greedy and wanting to take advantage of others. What about protecting the ancestors? Protect my ass. But Chaowu Pavilion's merging into Tianzong Academy was going to be busy. Li Zhongjiu returned to the White Deer Mansion. He took out the Green Bird platform. A strange wave of energy came from the Blue Bird platform. Waves of energy gradually spread out. Li Zhongjiu also sat quietly outside the Green Bird platform. But at this moment, there seemed to be a fluctuation of energy on the Green Bird platform. And it became quite chaotic. Oh no, this girl can't control it. Li Zhongjiu was slightly surprised. Obviously, Qi Yanran had accidentally broken through her own realm during this process. But this breakthrough was too sudden and difficult to control. And there was a danger of qi deviation at any time. Immediately, Li Zhongjiu released his mind power. It wrapped around the Green Bird platform. He tried his best to stabilize this wild and violent power. Chapter 1531. The energy waves released from the Green Bird platform. Li Zhongjiu felt that it was very troublesome. What exactly did this girl experience in the Green Bird platform to have such a big breakthrough? Fortunately, Li Zhongjiu also had a big breakthrough during this period of time. Therefore, he could more or less control this energy and prevent it from spreading everywhere. At the same time, he guided Qi Yanran to temporarily suppress this energy. This was equivalent to guiding Qi Yanran to control her own energy. This control lasted for a full 5 days. Finally, it stabilized. Li Zhongjiu breathed a sigh of relief. Then, he saw a figure gradually appear on the Green Bird platform. It was Qi Yanran. Zhongjiu. When Qi Yanran opened her eyes, she saw Li Zhongjiu in front of her. These days, if Li Zhongjiu had not helped her, it would have been difficult for her to get through this ordeal. Without saying a word, Qi Yanran flew up and hugged Li Zhongjiu fiercely. This time it took more than a month to heal his injuries. This made Qi Yanran very anxious. She was afraid that Li Zhongjiu would be too worried. Alright, it's okay. I've dealt with it. I've killed those people from the Devouring Yuan clan. Li Zhongjiu said faintly. If these people from the Devouring Yuan clan had not hurt Qi Yanran, Li Zhongjiu would not have taken revenge so crazily. It could be said that he had really killed all of them. A few days ago, Xiao Zhao had completed the task of cleaning up the Azure Sea Academy. The members of the Devouring Yuan clan had been deliberately avoiding contact with the human race. Therefore, after getting rid of them, they did not leave any trouble behind. Even if there was trouble, they were directly dealt with. Now it was said that these people from the Devouring Yuan clan and some others were scattered in other places. Li Zhongjiu also ordered people to continue investigating. Anyway, they had to go against these people from the Devouring Yuan clan. They have a strange ability that can seal my origin energy. Qi Yanran said. She was also worried that these people would harm Li Zhongjiu. In fact, they had already found a way to deal with the Devouring Yuan clan. That was poisoning. Sometimes, he didn't even need to do it himself. Don't worry, they're not that impressive. You seem to have made a huge breakthrough in your strength. Li Zhongjiu also checked the situation and found that the latter's willpower cultivation had already reached the Xiantian level. Moreover, their strength was not below that of Li Zhongjiu. That was why Li Zhongjiu was so surprised. One must know that the reason why Li Zhongjiu was able to reach his current level of cultivation was all because of the evil dragon's eye. Under such inhumane devastation, that was why there was such a breakthrough. However, looking at Qi Yanran, it seemed that she did not suffer much and had already reached the level 2 Xiantian realm. It's also because of the power of inheritance. The inheritance of the Green Bird platform is no small matter. Even the 3 elders of the Sparrow Divine Palace were not clear about it. Qi Yanran said immediately, I don't know about the other 2 clans, but this Green Bird platform was not refined by the Heavenly Sparrow clan. It was just found by them. From this Green Bird platform, I learned some secrets. For example, we are now at the Xiantian realm, But above that is the celestial realm. Above the celestial realm, there are even more powerful existences. This green bird platform is most likely created by an expert who has surpassed the celestial realm. Qi Yanran said. If Li Zhongjie had not met the Black Sea Overlord, he would have been very surprised by what Qi Yanran had said. However, he was now clear about the cultivation level. It was extremely difficult to reach the celestial realm. Refined by an expert who has surpassed the celestial realm? Li Zhongjie carefully observed the green bird platform. It was indeed powerful to be able to obtain such a treasure. Therefore, Li Zhongjie was very envious. Unlike himself, he could only rely on his talent and experience to cultivate here. If he did not have the 3,000 years of cultivation experience from his previous life, he would not have been able to cultivate here. Li Zhongjie estimated that he was only in Yuan King now, not even in Yuan Emperor. The gap was quite big. I know about this too. Some time ago, I met a top expert in the Black Sea. This person was at least in the celestial realm. Li Zhongjie also told her about the Lord of the Black Sea. After all, he and Qi Yanran were the only ones who could exchange information with each other now. The two of them also talked for a long time. Later on, they walked to the top of the mountain and enjoyed the quiet time. Then, Li Zhongjie gave the flying elixir that he had refined previously to Qi Yanran. It was a grade 11 elixir after all. It was worth a lot. Even Qi Yanran was completely stunned when she saw the grade 11 elixir. He could actually refine a grade 11 elixir. I didn't expect you to be able to refine grade 11 elixir. I've slacked off, Qi Yanran said in surprise. Obviously, in Qi Yanran's eyes, Li Zhongjie was the real scary one. He obviously didn't have any inheritance and relied on his talent to cultivate here. In addition to the cultivation of his origin force cultivation. In alchemy, even the study and cultivation of formations, he had never fallen behind. This was what truly astonished and shocked people. Such a Li Zhongjie was really too scary. Where did such a strong talent come from? It was simply superhuman. I haven't seen your father for a long time. Let's go to your house for dinner tonight, Li Zhongjie said. Sure. After all, the Qi family was also in the Sacred Flame Royal City. It was only 2 steps away. He left as soon as he said so. He walked down from the back mountain of the White Deer Mansion. Li Zhongjie and Qi Yanran walked in the direction of the Qi family. When they were on the street, they also bought some small daily things and didn't prepare any expensive gifts. Li Zhongjie also asked people to send ordinary elixirs and other things. Of course, if there was anything good, he wouldn't forget to send it to the Qi family. And now that Qi Yanran was in the Qi family, there were some things that didn't need Li Zhongjie at all. Otherwise, in the Qi family's eyes, it would even feel that this was Li Zhongjie's charity. So sometimes, it was still difficult to be a person. So he casually bought some small gifts and paid a visit. When the guards of the Qi family saw Qi Yanran and Li Zhongjie coming over, they were shocked. They couldn't believe their eyes. Miss, evil lord. After confirming again and again, they rubbed their eyes. When they saw that it was a real person, they hurriedly sent someone to inform them. Okay, there's no need to inform them. We'll go in ourselves. Under the shocked and envious gaze of the guards at the door, the two walked in. A talented man and a beautiful woman. A match made in heaven. Those who could be arranged to guard the gate were generally very discerning. Otherwise, it would be very easy to offend some big shots. This was a very troublesome matter. Qi Xiaohan hadn't seen him for a long time. Now he was Li Zhongjie's father-in-law. But the two of them were like peers. I treat you as a brother, but you actually flirted with my daughter. This was also a sentence that Qi Xiaohan often said. But in this world, was there anyone more reliable than Li Zhongjie? And in this world, there was no one more outstanding than Li Zhongjie. Therefore, to be able to give his daughter to Li Zhongjie was the most perfect thing for Qi Xiaohan. If Li Zhongjie dared to bully Qi Yanran, Qi Xiaohan would no longer care so much. Even if he couldn't win, he would fight with his life. Naturally, it was quite nostalgic to meet again. Although it was a temporary visit, it was very easy for the Qi family to cook 2 more dishes. Li Zhongjie and Qi Xiaohan were drinking and chatting. Qi Yanran was pouring wine at the side. After drinking, Qi Xiaohun, who had not been drunk for more than 10 years, was directly drunk under the table. After you refine the elixir, we'll go to Wuxia City and meet my parents. Okay. Qi Yanran also responded in a low voice. Anyway, Qi Yanran was now a Xiantian expert, but when she thought of meeting Li Zongjia's parents in a very formal way, she was very nervous. She was still extremely nervous. This had nothing to do with strength. But before this, Qi Yanran had seen Li Zongjia's parents, but at that time, they were not married. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.